This audiobook reveals the hidden mechanics of consciousness, where thought shapes matter, emotion rewrites outcomes, and identity bends time. You'll uncover rituals, insights, and forgotten laws that put creation back in your hands. Don't just survive your life, sculpt it. Everything changes the moment you realize the current was always you. In the hush of dawn, before thought takes hold, something ancient stirs. There is a space, a breath, a flicker, between sleep and waking, where the veil between worlds is thinnest. In that liminal silence, awareness emerges not as a thought, but as a presence. You do not think, you simply are. The body has not yet remembered who it was yesterday. The stories, worries, and routines have not yet returned to their thrones. And in that fleeting instant, the truth of who you are gleams like morning light on water. This is the moment most overlook. The eyes open, the phone glows, the mind reboots its programming, and the magic slips away. But if you pause, even for a breath, you can catch it. The whisper of awareness before identity rushes in. This is the first spark. It is not passive, it is not small. It is the purest access point to the reality you will build that day. The power that shapes your life does not awaken at noon with effort. It arrives the instant you do. Consider Edward Fields, who in 1931 New Hampshire began each day at 4 a.m. with a single breath in silence. He was a farmer by trade, but something in him had always known there was more than soil and seed. Instead of leaping into motion, Edward would sit by the wood stove and simply observe, not the world, himself. What stirred within him before thought could form, before yesterday could return. Over time, he began to notice something miraculous. The more he greeted his own awareness before greeting the world, the more the world reshaped to reflect the clarity of that inner welcome. Crops grew in strange abundance, solutions arose before problems appeared, and time seemed to stretch to fit whatever he needed. Others called him lucky. Edward called it being awake before being human. You see, the moment you wake is not just the beginning of your day. It is the axis of your power. Before the mind, before the to-do list, there is you, untouched, aware, and quietly commanding. It is not the thoughts you think that define your reality, but the consciousness that chooses which thoughts to host. Sacred insight. The day does not begin when you rise from bed. It begins when your awareness returns to the seat of creation. To awaken deliberately is to claim the canvas before any paint touches its surface. The spark ritual. Tomorrow morning, before speaking, moving, or thinking, pause. Feel the pulse of your own awareness. Do not ask questions. Do not narrate. Simply notice that you are here. Hold this presence for 1 full minute. Then gently let your day unfold from that still point. As you move forward, carry the awareness that you are not just a character stepping into your day. You are the author, and the first word was already written when you chose to notice it. Before reaction, before meaning, before the story begins, there is a presence within you that sees all but holds nothing. It does not label, fix, resist, or crave. It simply observes. This is the silent witness, the eternal presence behind your eyes that watches your thoughts rise and fall like mist. Most people live from the surface, reacting to the wave of each thought, swept by emotion, pulled by the gravity of the moment. But beneath that surface lives something deeper, calmer, infinitely wiser. When you recognize it, you step out of the storm and into the eye. In 1927, in a quiet village on the outskirts of Vienna, a seamstress named Clara Weber began to notice something unusual. Each morning, while sipping tea before the sun crested the hills, she would sit by the window in stillness. At first, it was habit, a pause before the bustle of fabric and thread, but over time, she began to see her thoughts the way one sees birds in flight, not as facts, but as movement across the sky of her awareness. One morning, a wave of anxiety came, whispering about money, customers, time. But instead of being pulled in, she watched. She said nothing. She judged nothing. And the fear, finding no fuel, passed like a breeze through open shutters. From that day on, she made the window her temple. She did not meditate, she witnessed. Soon her entire life began to shift. Arguments dissolved before they began. Clients returned without reason. A calm settled into her stitches. People said her clothing felt enchanted, but it was not the fabric. It was the energy of the witness woven into each thread. Clara had remembered the one truth most forget. When you stop believing everything you think, the world becomes lighter. You see, the silent witness does not resist thought or feeling. It welcomes all, holds none. It is the space in which everything appears but nothing clings. This presence cannot be damaged, frightened, or exhausted. It has always been with you, quietly watching, patiently waiting for you to remember. It is not interested in control. It is the source of peace itself. Sacred insight. The witness within you is not here to change what is. It is here to hold it all, without distortion. When you observe without attachment, you enter the only space where clarity and truth are possible. The presence ritual. Once today, during a moment of stress, pause. Do not respond. Do not explain. Close your eyes and take a single breath. Observe your thoughts and emotions as if they belong to someone else. Notice them, but hold nothing. For that breath, become the space behind the experience. Repeat this whenever you feel pulled into reaction. Over time, you will discover that your power was never in controlling the storm, but in remembering that you were never the storm at all. There is a hum inside you, not a sound, but a sensation, a gentle current that flows beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath all the shifting surface of your daily life. Most never feel it, not because it's not there, but because they are tuned to noise instead of stillness. But if you slow down just for a breath, you will sense it, the steady pulse of life moving through you. It has no beginning, no end. It doesn't ask for your belief. It is the part of you that was never wounded, never confused, never separate from source. This is the current within. In 1946, a man named Elijah Ford lived alone on the edge of Lake Superior. A reclusive violin maker, he rarely spoke, yet his instruments sang with such depth that musicians said they seemed to breathe. One autumn, a music professor traveled cross-country just to ask Elijah his secret. Elijah didn't speak. He took the professor to the lake's edge at dawn, placed a hand on his chest, and said only this: "Tune to this." The professor closed his eyes. At first, he heard the wind, the trees, the lap of water, but then something else, a subtle rhythm, an inner resonance. He felt the pulse of his own being, and when he returned to his orchestra weeks later, his students said his music had changed. More than sound, it carried presence. You see, the current within you is not metaphor. It is energetic truth. It is the vibration of your essence before thought takes shape. Every inspired action, every intuitive nudge, every creative breakthrough begins here. When you ignore it, life feels forced. When you follow it, life flows. This current does not roar, it whispers, it invites. It is not intensity that marks it, but purity. When you learn to feel it, you stop looking for power outside of you, in titles, in approval, in outcome. You realize you are the battery, the source, and everything you desire flows outward from the clarity of your own energy. Sacred insight. There is a frequency beneath your personality that holds the code of your true power. It does not speak in thoughts. It pulses in presence. When you learn to feel this inner current, you align with the most magnetic, effortless version of yourself. The inner pulse ritual. Each morning before your first task, sit in silence. Place your hand on your heart or lower belly. Close your eyes and breathe slowly. Shift your attention from thought to sensation. You're not trying to find anything, just feel. Beneath the breath, beneath the noise, Wait for the subtle hum, the quiet aliveness. It may feel like warmth, a thrum, a wave. When you find it, stay with it. Even 2 minutes is enough. Then carry that presence with you into your day. You will begin to notice that the more you live from the current, the more reality bends to meet its rhythm. Not because you're pushing, because you're finally tuned in. There is no such thing as an idle thought. Every vibration you emit, every feeling you carry, every quiet assumption you hold, it is all being heard. Not by some distant force outside you, but by the field of reality itself. What you call the world is not a backdrop. It is a mirror, a mechanism, a living matrix of responsiveness. Your world is listening, always. It does not judge. It reflects, and the clearer your signal, the more precisely it answers. In 1938, in a seaside town in Maine, lived a radio host named Clara Vance. Each morning she would enter her tiny booth, speak into the microphone, and share weather updates, local stories, and unscripted thoughts about life. She didn't know how many listeners she had, perhaps only a few dozen. But one winter morning, as she spoke about kindness, something shifted. She didn't plan it. She spoke from her heart. She told a story of a neighbor who shoveled snow for a stranger. That same day, 3 callers phoned in to say they had done the same. The next morning, she shared a memory of a friend who always left handwritten notes of gratitude. Within a week, local businesses were flooded with anonymous thank you cards. Clara began to realize something extraordinary. Her voice wasn't just filling the air, it was shaping it. You see, reality is more like a recording device than a sculpture. It doesn't respond to effort, it responds to energy. You do not need to convince or control your world. You only need to emit clearly, consistently, from the frequency of what you know to be true. What you radiate is what you receive. It may not come back instantly or in the form you expect, but it comes. Every time. This is not karma. This is not magic. This is law. What you embody becomes your broadcast. What you broadcast becomes your experience. People feel you before they understand you. Circumstances shape around what you assume, not what you hope. Sacred insight. Your life is not reacting to your words, your plans, or your rituals. It is reacting to your signal. What you believe, what you feel, what you know beneath the surface. Reality does not have ears, but it echoes what you are being. The broadcast ritual. Choose a specific emotion you want your life to reflect. Peace, joy, abundance. Sit quietly and generate this feeling. Imagine it as a sound, a song, a frequency you're sending out into the space around you. Hold it for 3 minutes. Then go about your day with the quiet confidence that your world heard you. Watch for reflections, not in grand gestures, but in subtle shifts. A stranger's smile, an unexpected gift, a moment of ease where once there was tension. These are echoes, evidence, proof that your world is not a wall, it is a wave, and it is listening, always. Everything speaks, not in words, but in waves. The world you see, the people, the timing, the chance encounters, the open doors, and the closed ones, is not responding to what you say or even what you do. It is responding to your energy. Every emotion you feel is a frequency, a signal, and your life is shaped not by what you want, but by the energy you emit most consistently. This is the true language of creation. It is silent, but it speaks louder than any thought. This is the language of energy. In 1942, in a small flower shop in Montreal, a woman named Elise Laurent arranged roses each morning with devotion. Her shop was modest, tucked between a tailor and a barber, often overlooked by foot traffic. But there was something about Elise's arrangements, how the colors blended, how the petals opened just right, that made her flowers feel alive. Customers said the bouquets made rooms feel warmer. One day, a visitor asked Elise her secret. She smiled and said, "I don't arrange flowers. I arrange feeling." Each morning, Elise would tune herself like an instrument. If she felt hurried, she would pause. If she felt off, she would walk in silence until her heart softened. Only when her inner state felt like calm beauty would she begin to work. Over time, the shop bloomed with success, not because she advertised, because she broadcasted beauty from within. You see, emotions are not private. They are instructions. Joy signals expansion. Gratitude signals readiness. Fear signals resistance. The universe does not punish or reward. It mirrors. Every emotion is a selection on the dial of your experience. When you hold frustration, your reality sharpens and closes. When you hold openness, synchronicities slip in through doors you didn't know were there. Most try to change outcomes while carrying the energy of fear. They want abundance but speak the language of lack. They seek love but broadcast unworthiness. It's not their fault. It's what they've been taught. But the truth is simple. Reality doesn't speak English. It speaks vibration, sacred insight. You are always sending a signal. Your emotions are not reactions to reality. They are the codes that configure it. Change the frequency, and the form must follow. The frequency translation ritual. Take a moment today to identify what you're truly feeling, not just what you think, but what lives in your body. Don't judge it, just notice. Then ask, what is this feeling broadcasting into my life? What outcome is it attracting? If it's not aligned with what you desire, shift gently. Don't force. Choose a better feeling thought, or move your body, or breathe deeply. Anything that helps you shift your broadcast. Even a small emotional adjustment will ripple outward into form, because energy doesn't lie, and the language it speaks is the blueprint from which your world is built. What you believe to be reality is not reality. It is your map of it, a map drawn long before you had the chance to choose. It came from family, culture, religion, trauma, repetition. You were handed a version of the world that said, this is how things are, and like most, you accepted it without question. But a map, no matter how detailed, is not the terrain. It is not the thing itself. And if the map you're using was drawn in fear, limitation, or inherited pain, then the road it leads you down will always circle back to the same place, a life too small for your spirit. In 1930, in a coal town in Pennsylvania, a boy named Jonah Harris grew up hearing one phrase more than any other: that's just the way things are. He heard it when the lights were shut off. He heard it when his father came home injured. He heard it every time he asked why dreams cost so much. By the time Jonah was 16, he had memorized that phrase as gospel. So when he turned 20 and was offered a scholarship to study engineering in New York, he hesitated. That's not for people like us, he said, until one evening, sitting alone in the mines, he looked around and asked himself, who told me that? He could not find an answer that belonged to his own voice. That night, Jonah wrote a letter of acceptance. Years later, as the founder of a successful firm, Jonah would tell young interns that the greatest lie is inherited limitation. The world isn't telling you no, he said. Your map is. You see, beliefs are not facts. They are agreements. Many of them unspoken, most of them unconscious. But once accepted, they become the framework through which you interpret everything. If you believe success takes struggle, then ease feels suspicious. If you believe love must hurt, then peace feels empty. Your reality bends to match your belief, not because it is true, but because you've never questioned it. Letting go of inherited beliefs is not about rebellion. It is about clarity. It is about standing in your own awareness and asking, is this mine? Does this idea serve the life I want to live? Or is it a hand-me-down truth that no longer fits the person I'm becoming? Sacred insight. The map you were given is not the territory you must walk. The real terrain of life responds not to what you were taught to expect, but to what you dare to believe now. The map revision ritual. Today, write down one belief you carry about life, money, love, or purpose. Ask yourself, who gave me this belief? Is it true now? Does it create limitation or freedom? If it no longer serves you, choose a new belief. Speak it aloud. Let your nervous system hear it. Let your mind reject it. Let your soul approve it. Then take one small action that aligns with this new map, because once you stop following inherited instructions, you begin discovering your own path, and the terrain becomes yours to shape. Each morning, before you open your door, you step into a world shaped not by forecasts or facts, but by something more personal, your mood. Like an invisible atmosphere, your inner weather travels ahead of you, entering rooms before you do, softening or hardening each moment. And just like the sky outside, your inner climate can shift without warning. But unlike the weather above, the mood within is something you influence far more than you realize. In 1944, in a post office on the edge of Kansas City, a clerk named Miriam Jones became known by a peculiar nickname, the Sun. Customers didn't know her real name. They just knew that standing at her window made everything feel lighter. Miriam never told jokes. She wasn't loud or overly cheerful, but she moved with a certain grace, and when she handed people their packages, it felt like she was giving them more than mail. What most didn't see were the few minutes Miriam took each morning before unlocking the front doors. She would sit in the back room, eyes closed, and choose her mood like someone choosing a coat. "Clear skies," she would whisper. "Today, I'm the sun." Over time, her line grew longer than any other window. People who didn't need stamps would come just to stand there, not because of what she did, but because of what she radiated. Miriam had discovered a quiet truth. The world reflects the weather you bring. Most people wait to see how the day will go before deciding how to feel. But that is like waiting for the sky to change before planting your garden. If you wake heavy, anxious, irritated, and you don't clear that fog, your reality will seem cloudy too. The traffic will feel worse, the people colder, the hours longer, not because the world has changed, but because your mood has set the filter. But just as a storm can break into sunlight, your mood can shift. With a single decision, a breath, a song, a moment of presence. And when you change the weather within, the world around begins to reflect something new, sacred insight. You do not walk into a neutral world. You bring the atmosphere with you. Your mood shapes perception, draws experience, and determines the tone of your day before anything happens. The weather ritual. Each morning, pause before beginning your routine. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what is my current weather? Be honest. There is no shame in clouds. Then ask, what weather would I like to bring into this day? Choose your forecast. Clarity, warmth, ease, joy. Take 3 breaths to embody it. Imagine it expanding beyond your body, filling the space around you. Then move forward. Watch how people respond, how the day seems to bend. This is not imagination. This is influence. And the more consistently you bring the weather you want to live in, the more the world will echo back the climate of your choice. There is a way of seeing that does not come from your eyes, a deeper gaze that looks not at life, but through it. It's subtle, quiet, and always available. This deeper perception doesn't scan for facts. It searches for essence. It doesn't react. It understands. And when you learn to see through this lens, the world transforms, not because the world has changed, but because the seer has awakened. In 1929, in a quiet monastery nestled in the Austrian Alps, a boy named Jakob Müller arrived after losing both parents in a fire. Silent, withdrawn, he wandered the stone halls like a ghost. One afternoon, while cleaning the library, he found a handwritten note tucked inside a dusty book of ancient teachings. It read, "You are not what sees. You are what sees the seer." He didn't understand, but something stirred. The next morning, as the sun rose over the snow-covered pines, he sat by the window and simply watched. Not the sky, not the mountains. He watched himself watching. He noticed how thoughts pulled him, how feelings clouded him. But beneath it all, he sensed something else, a stillness, a presence, the eyes behind the eyes. From that moment, Jakob changed. He still spoke little, But when he looked at someone, they felt seen, not evaluated, not judged, just held in awareness. Years later, the monks would say he had the kind of sight that healed without words. You see, your surface perception is shaped by filters, beliefs, judgments, memory. It labels, it compares, it keeps you stuck in the known. But deeper awareness doesn't live in the mind. It is the silent observer behind your personality. It does not resist. It does not grasp. It simply sees. And that seeing changes everything. When you see through this deeper presence, you stop reacting. You begin responding. You don't just hear someone's words. You feel the pain or beauty underneath them. You don't just witness a problem. You sense the hidden pattern inside it. Life becomes less of a riddle and more of a revelation. Sacred insight. There is a part of you that never flinches, never clings, never rushes to conclusions. It is the witness of all things. And when you perceive through this deeper gaze, the illusion of separation fades. The seeing practice. Today, pause in front of a mirror. Look into your own eyes, not at the surface, but through them. Breathe. Notice the flickers of thought, the subtle movements of emotion. Then look beyond them. Ask gently, who is watching this? Sit in that question without trying to answer it. Let the awareness that remains become your companion. As you go through your day, practice seeing from that space, not through judgment, through presence. Watch how conversations shift, how your reactions soften, how the world around you begins to feel more connected, more spacious, more alive. You've not changed the world. You've simply remembered the one who truly sees. Before form arrives, there is frequency. Before the phone rings, before the door opens, before the opportunity appears, something has already been sent ahead. That something is your vibration. It is not emotion, not exactly. It's not thought alone. It is the combined resonance of what you feel, believe, and expect, all humming quietly beneath your words. It is your broadcast, and it shapes what responds to you. Manifestation is not random. It is resonance. In 1947, a jazz singer named Evelyn Cross was struggling to book performances. Her voice was velvet, her technique impeccable, but show after show fell through. One afternoon, sitting alone in her New Orleans apartment, she caught her reflection in the dusty mirror. "No one hears me," she whispered. And in that moment, she realized it wasn't the world that had gone silent. It was her frequency. Beneath the surface, she was radiating invisibility. So she stood, placed her hand on her heart, and began to hum, not a song, but a vibration. She imagined herself being felt, received, remembered. She tuned not her voice, but her energy. Within days, a club owner who had once ignored her asked her to headline, not because her skill changed, her signal did. You see, reality does not move in response to what you want. It moves in response to what you are being, and what you are being is felt vibrationally before it is seen. Frequency precedes evidence. It is the seed before the fruit, the echo before the voice. When your inner frequency aligns with your desire, the external world has no choice but to follow. Most people try to manifest backwards. They wait for something to appear so they can feel different. But manifestation isn't about waiting, it's about alignment. You must feel it first, not because you're pretending, but because you're tuning. Like a radio must match the signal of a station before it can hear the music. Sacred insight. The version of life you experience is not chosen by force or effort. It is selected by frequency. You don't chase outcomes. You tune into them. The vibration alignment ritual. Today, choose one thing you desire to experience. Peace, success, love. Close your eyes and ask, what frequency does this live on? Then summon that feeling within. Not perfectly, not for show, just enough to feel the signal change. Carry it like music playing quietly under your day. Watch as reality begins to tune itself to match. Because when you lead with frequency, manifestation isn't effort, it's inevitability. Every thought is electric. Every feeling is magnetic. Together they emit a signal into what some call the quantum field, the invisible space where possibility waits to take form. You are not thinking in isolation, you are broadcasting, and the signal you emit does not float aimlessly. It interacts with the field, shaping what it reflects back. This is not philosophy, it is physics. To change your life, you must learn to tune the field. In 1935, a telegraph operator named Harold Beck worked the late-night shift along the coastal lines of Oregon. He became obsessed with the precision of signal. Slight distortions in current could change an entire message. "The sender may speak clearly," he once wrote, "but if the wire is scrambled, the message is garbled." One night, a realization struck him. He was a wire too. His thoughts were signals, his emotions a form of current. What if life's delays and distortions had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with how he was tuned? So Harold began an experiment. Each morning, before touching the keys, he'd sit in silence and adjust his inner frequency. He'd think deliberately, feel intentionally. He treated his mind like a dial and asked himself, "What message am I sending?" Over the months that followed, his circumstances shifted. Unexpected raises, improved relationships, and more clarity than ever. He didn't control the field. He aligned with it. You see, the field does not respond to noise. It responds to coherence. When your thoughts are scattered, your signal is fuzzy. When your feelings contradict your desires, your broadcast is split. But when thought and emotion align, when intention and belief converge, you become a powerful transmitter. The field hears you, and it answers. Sacred insight. You are not just living in reality. You are shaping it with every signal you send. The clearer your inner transmission, the faster the outer response. The field tuning practice. Find a quiet space. Think of a specific desire you want to call into form. Now feel the emotions that match it. Joy, peace, certainty. Sit with those feelings. Let them build. Picture your body as a transmitter, sending this signal into the field like ripples in still water, then release it. Go about your day not as someone hoping, but as someone already tuned. Watch how people, events, and insights begin to arrive. Not because you forced it, but because the field always matches a clear signal. What feels solid isn't. The table, the wall, the chair beneath you, all made of atoms, and between those atoms, space, energy, vibration. The world appears fixed, but science and mystics alike have whispered the same secret for centuries. It is not solid. It is structured illusion. And what holds it together is not matter, but meaning. What you call reality is a projection, fluid, responsive, holographic. Change the projector, and the image must change. In 1922, a physicist named Lenora Quinn worked in a dim lab on the outskirts of Geneva. Her fascination wasn't with machines, but with perception. She once wrote, "If two people experience the same event but feel something different, what is the event really?" To test her theory, she created a room of rotating mirrors and directed different colored lights through slits. Depending on where an observer stood, the image appeared completely different. Reality, she said, depends entirely on where you stand and what you expect to see. Years later, Lenora would abandon physics to study ancient texts. She found her answer not in formulas, but in philosophies that said the same thing. Reality is malleable. Perception is the lens. Belief is the frame. Focus is the fuel. You see, your reality is not the raw material of the world. It is the echo of your interpretation. What you believe about money, about love, about your own worth, those beliefs form the architecture of your experience. The world seems hard because you expect it to be. It seems repetitive because you are projecting the same expectations. Like a film playing on a screen, the outer world only reflects the real you've placed in the projector. This doesn't mean the world is fake. It means it's flexible. It responds to the observer, and the moment you change your perspective, the moment you shift your inner state, the hologram bends. Sacred insight. Nothing is fixed. Not your story, not your limits, not your past. Everything you see is a mirror of your mental and emotional frequency. Change the code, and the projection must shift. The perception shift ritual. Choose one solid problem in your life, a situation that feels immovable. Now pause. Ask yourself, what am I believing about this that makes it appear real? Write down the core belief, then ask, what else could be true? Choose one new perspective, one lens of possibility. For the next 3 days, look at this situation only through that new lens. Speak from it, feel from it, respond from it. Watch what begins to shift. The wall may remain, but the moment you believe it's a door, you'll see the handle you couldn't see before, because the world was never the obstacle, it was the echo of your expectation. Life is meant to flow. Like a river moving through terrain, it finds the easiest path toward fulfillment until you block it, not with action or mistake, but with resistance. Resistance doesn't look like effort. It looks like control, like needing things to happen a certain way, like fighting against what is. And every time you resist, you turn what could be a wave into a wall. In 1933, a young architect named Samuel Denton worked on a government project that kept stalling. Every delay, every changed design infuriated him. He fought deadlines, argued with contractors, refused to compromise. The more he tried to push through the obstacles, the more everything slowed. Then one day, exhausted, he walked to the river near the site and watched a leaf drift down the current. It weaved through rocks, spun in whirlpools, and still kept moving forward. In that moment, Samuel saw himself, not as the river, but as the rock. He had been the blockage. He returned to work with a new question. What if I stopped fighting? What if I flowed around the problem? He began listening more, adjusting quickly, letting go of control. Within weeks, the project resumed momentum. It finished ahead of schedule, and Samuel never designed the same way again. You see, resistance doesn't stop possibility. It collapses it. Like tension in a hose, it kinks the flow. When you argue with reality, you dam the current. When you surrender, not in weakness, but in presence, the flow returns. What you resist persists, not because it's stronger than you, but because your focus energizes it. And in the physics of creation, energy is permission. What you accept shifts. What you allow transforms. Sacred insight. Reality flows like water. It follows the path of least resistance. The more you soften, the more life moves around, through and for you. The flow ritual. Identify one situation in your life that feels heavy or stuck. Ask yourself, where am I pushing? Where am I demanding instead of allowing? Take 3 deep breaths and imagine the situation as a wave, not a wall. What would it feel like to ride it instead of resist it? For one day, release control. Let things be as they are. Watch how doors begin to open, doors you couldn't see while pounding on the ones that were closed. Life is not holding you back. Your resistance is. Let go and let the wave carry you. You leave a trail everywhere you go, not of footsteps, but of energy. Every thought, every emotion, every intention leaves a subtle imprint in the space around you. This is your energy signature. It is invisible yet unmistakable. It enters the room before you speak. It lingers after you've gone. And it does more than signal your presence. It shapes your outcomes. In 1940, a French perfumer named Lucille Moreau claimed she could smell someone's essence the moment they walked into her shop. She didn't mean perfume, she meant presence. Some people arrive like a storm, she said. Others like sunlight. I blend fragrance to match the feeling they bring. Over the years, she kept a secret journal. In it, she recorded customers' moods, desires, and the subtle shift in her store's energy after they entered. She discovered that those who carried peace often experienced faster results. Their orders flowed, their packages arrived early, but those who carried tension seemed to trigger delay. broken bottles, lost shipments. Lucille concluded something profound. Energy writes instructions into reality. Your energy signature is not what you pretend to be. It's what you truly believe and feel beneath the surface. You may speak of success, but if your core emits doubt, that's what the field responds to. You may smile, but if you're radiating resentment, life mirrors that frequency. The field does not hear words. It reads signals, and yours is always transmitting. This is not about perfection. It's about authenticity, alignment. When your thoughts, feelings, and intentions converge, your energy becomes coherent, magnetic, clear, and from that place, creation becomes effortless. Sacred insight. You are not attracting what you want. You are attracting what you are. Your energy signature is your calling card to the universe. The alignment practice. Sit for 5 minutes today. Ask yourself, what am I radiating right now? Not what you want to feel, but what you're actually feeling. Be honest, then ask, does this match the life I want to live? If not, breathe, shift gently. Imagine your body like an instrument, tune it, then walk into your next interaction aware of the energy you carry. Not forced, not performed, real. Watch how differently the world responds. Not to your words, to your frequency. There are forces at work that you cannot see, but that are always responding. You are not moving through life alone. Behind every coincidence, every perfect timing, every unexpected turn, there are invisible hands. Not mystical, not external, but the natural coordination of consciousness in motion. When your energy aligns, these forces begin to arrange what your effort cannot. In 1937 in Lisbon, a tailor named Paulo Esteves was struggling. His shop had quieted. Money was thin. One afternoon, he sat beneath the olive tree outside his store, hands empty, heart heavy. "I've done everything," he whispered. "Now I surrender." That night he dreamed of a coat he'd never made, deep emerald green, unlike any order he'd ever received. The next morning he cut the fabric from instinct. No client had asked for it. No one knew it existed. But within hours of placing it in the window, a stranger appeared. "That," the man said, "is exactly what I came here to find." That stranger turned out to be a foreign ambassador, and Paulo's career was never the same. You see, when you release control and step into alignment, life orchestrates outcomes beyond logic. The invisible hands are not outside of you. They are extensions of your intent, your presence, your clarity. They respond when you stop pushing and start trusting. They deliver not what you chase, but what you align with. When you try to do it all yourself, you block the collaboration of creation. But when you soften, the unseen begins to arrange in your favor. It's not magic, it's resonance meeting timing. Sacred insight. Life is not random, it is responsive. And when you stop gripping outcomes, the invisible hands move freely on your behalf. The trust ritual. Identify something you've been trying to control, a goal, a relationship, a next step. Write it down, then close your eyes and say aloud, "I no longer need to manage every detail. I trust the invisible hands." For the next 24 hours, take only inspired action. No forcing, no chasing, just alignment. Watch for signs, whispers, tiny shifts. These are the hands at work. You don't have to see them to be guided by them. Long before you ask for something, you are already broadcasting, even when silent, even when unaware. Your beliefs speak louder than your voice. They move ahead of you, whispering to the world what you expect, not what you hope for, what you truly believe. And reality listens. In 1945, a woman named Della Monroe managed a quiet bakery in Connecticut. She never advertised. Her cakes were ordinary, her windows unremarkable, yet her store was always full. When asked her secret, she would say, "I expect kindness, and I receive it." She never begged customers to return. She simply believed they would. And they did. Della didn't broadcast with words. She broadcasted with certainty. Her belief was clear, and life arranged to match it. You are always transmitting. Your energy, your thoughts, your assumptions, they become your silent requests. If you believe money is hard, you broadcast lack. If you believe love hurts, you broadcast defense. The universe, neutral and precise, responds not to your intentions but to your frequency. This is not punishment, it is precision. You are the lighthouse. You don't chase ships, you emit light. The sea answers. Sacred insight. Your reality is built from the signals you send, not the words you say. If you want a new outcome, you must update your inner broadcast. The signal check ritual. Pause right now. Without editing, ask yourself, what have I been broadcasting about my worth, my future, my place in the world? Be honest. Then ask, what would someone who lives my desired life be broadcasting? Choose one belief they would hold. For the next 3 days, carry that belief like a signal, quietly, without fanfare. Watch what changes. The moment you upgrade your inner frequency, life adjusts its response, because it always was and always will be listening to your signal. You are painting your reality every moment, not with brushes but with thought, not with colors but with focus. Your consciousness is the canvas, and every idea, every assumption, every belief becomes a stroke of form. The question is not whether you are creating, only whether you're doing so with awareness. Most people walk through life holding a dripping brush, unaware that each unconscious thought leaves a mark. But once you remember that consciousness is creative, not passive, everything changes. In 1936, a schoolteacher named Hilda Barrett kept a private journal titled My Canvas. Every morning before teaching, she would write a single sentence of what she wanted her day to look like. Today will be peaceful. Today I inspire someone. Today I move with grace. At first, it seemed a harmless habit, but over time she noticed her intentions appearing in tangible form. Students behaved differently. Compliments came out of nowhere. Days unfolded as if the sentence she wrote had scripted the scene. She was not controlling life. She was painting it. Your thoughts are not decorations. They are instructions. The moment you think, the brush meets the canvas. Repetition etches them deeper. Emotion adds depth. Focus adds dimension. And soon, what was once invisible becomes the world you walk through. The universe does not pick and choose what to manifest. It reflects the most consistent strokes, the most vivid images, the ones you revisit again and again. So if your inner world is messy, chaotic, full of fear and assumption, don't be surprised if your outer world mirrors it. You're not being punished. You're being painted. Sacred insight. You are the artist of your experience. Consciousness is your canvas. Thought is your brush. The masterpiece is already forming beneath your awareness. The creative stroke ritual. Each morning choose one clear thought that reflects the reality you desire to live in. Write it, speak it, then hold it in your awareness like a painter, visualizing the image before placing it on the canvas. Throughout your day, return to it. Let your emotions color it. Let your focus refine it. Watch as subtle shifts begin to appear, evidence of your brushstrokes manifesting in the outer world. Creation is not somewhere in the future. It is happening now, in real time, beneath your fingertips. Reality is not linear. It loops. You think something, reality responds. You interpret that response, and it reinforces the original thought. This cycle continues until what was once a fleeting idea becomes a fixed experience. This is the reality loop, a feedback system where your mind and the external world continuously reflect each other. Break the loop and you free yourself. Strengthen it and you create momentum. The loop itself is neutral. What you feed it determines what it grows. In 1928, a mechanic named Wallace Green worked in a busy Detroit garage. He believed he was unlucky. Every morning he expected something to go wrong, and something always did. Tools went missing, clients complained, co-workers argued. One day, his apprentice pointed out something strange. Wallace seemed to attract problems that didn't happen to anyone else. At first, he dismissed it, but after a slow day where nothing went wrong until he muttered, "It's too quiet," and then promptly dropped a wrench on his foot, he began to wonder, was the world actually chaotic, or was he setting the stage? Wallace began an experiment. For 30 days, he would start his shift by expecting ease. He'd say, "Today flows." The results were subtle but undeniable. Fewer mishaps, friendlier faces, unexpected help. Wallace had interrupted the loop. You see, the world isn't random. It is responsive. When you expect difficulty, your mind scans for proof. You interpret events through that lens. You feel stressed, which alters your posture, your choices, your tone. Others respond to that energy, confirming your fear. The loop completes. But when you expect ease or opportunity, the same cycle forms, only now it builds the world you actually want to live in. Sacred insight. Your mind and your world are in constant dialogue. Change the script of your thoughts, and you shift the storyline of your life. The loop interrupt ritual. Catch yourself in a recurring negative thought, one you've repeated so often it feels like truth. Pause. Ask, what if this isn't reality but a loop? Choose a new thought. It doesn't have to be extreme, just one level lighter. Replace "nothing ever works" with "something could work today." Hold that new idea. Look for its reflection. One shift breaks the cycle, and once you break the loop, you begin to write a new one, on purpose. Most people think of manifestation as a miracle, something sudden, mysterious, and separate from the systems of life. But manifestation is not magic. It is a precise, structured response to your energetic state. You are not waiting for fate. You are working within an unseen architecture of cause and effect that begins in the invisible and ends in the visible. When you understand this, creation becomes less mysterious and more natural. In 1939, an inventor named Sylvia Hale built radios in her Chicago basement. She spoke often of frequency paths, explaining that each station could only be heard when the receiver was aligned. She saw life the same way. You can't tune into abundance while vibrating in doubt, she told her niece one evening. The dial doesn't lie. Sylvia began writing her desires as if they were engineering blueprints. She included the feeling she intended to embody, the thoughts that would support that feeling, and the small actions that would reflect her alignment. Her friends laughed, but soon opportunities followed her notes, like instructions followed a design. She wasn't casting spells, she was building circuits. You see, manifestation works like any other system. Input equals output, but most people try to change their output, reality, while feeding the same input, fear, lack, unworthiness. They affirm abundance while living in scarcity. They visualize love while bracing for rejection. The system can't respond to your words. It responds to your state. This doesn't mean you must be perfect. It means you must be congruent. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with your desired outcome, manifestation becomes mechanical, just as pressing a button lights a bulb, not because the bulb wants to light up, but because the circuit is complete. Sacred insight. Manifestation is not an act of magic. It is the natural consequence of energetic coherence. When your inner world matches your desired outer world, results follow. The circuit ritual. Choose something you want to manifest. Write it down in one sentence. Then underneath, answer these 3 questions. What thoughts would support this? What feelings match it? What actions reflect it today? Now align all 3. Don't just wish, wire it. When your internal signal becomes a clear command, manifestation stops being a miracle. It becomes a matter of physics. Nature never strains. Water doesn't push its way uphill. Trees don't force themselves to grow, and yet everything in nature thrives because it follows the path of least resistance. This path isn't laziness, it's intelligence, it's alignment. And when you align with your own flow, life begins to carry you with similar ease. The problem is, most people have been taught to fight their way forward. In 1941, a craftsman named Elias Tran built wooden canoes by hand in Oregon. When asked how he shaped the curves so smoothly, he replied, "I don't bend the wood, I find the grain and follow it." His apprentices learned quickly. The more you force, the more the wood cracks. But if you follow the natural line, the form emerges effortlessly. One young apprentice applied the same lesson to his life. Instead of forcing a career path his father wanted, he chose the one that felt fluid. Years later, he would say, Elias taught him more than canoe making. He taught him how to live. You see, the path of least resistance isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing what aligns. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, energy flows without friction. You get more done with less effort. You receive instead of chase. Life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like a collaboration. The universe does not reward struggle. It responds to flow. When something feels constantly hard, ask, am I forcing a crooked piece of wood, or have I lost the grain? Sacred insight. Effort without alignment creates exhaustion. But action taken from flow becomes momentum. Follow the current, and the current carries you. The alignment check. Think of something you're working toward that feels heavy. Ask yourself, where is the resistance? Am I out of alignment with what I want, how I feel, or what I'm doing? Then adjust. Release the part that isn't flowing. Find the version that feels smoother, not easier, but truer. Watch how movement returns, because when you stop pushing against your own current, everything begins to move again. What you watch grows. What you ignore fades. This is not opinion. It is a fundamental law of consciousness. The observer's law states that the very act of focusing attention causes energy to gather and solidify into experience. You are not just living your life. You are feeding it with attention, with meaning, with observation, and whatever receives your sustained gaze begins to take form. In 1932, a physicist named Charles Bowman ran an experiment at a small university in Wales. He studied particles that behaved differently when observed. Awareness, he wrote, is not passive. It alters the very behavior of matter. Inspired by this, he conducted his own life as a secondary experiment. He began focusing only on the outcomes he wanted. Instead of fearing illness, he focused on vitality. Instead of scanning for problems, he searched for signs of support. Gradually, his life adjusted. Not because the world changed, but because his attention reassembled it. You see, your focus is fuel. What you continually return to in your mind gains weight, mass, reality. This is why worry becomes self-fulfilling, why fear repeats itself, why doubt seems to attract proof. You are not cursed. You are simply observing the wrong frequency for too long. But the moment you shift your gaze, you redirect the current. Focus on gratitude, and it expands. Focus on what's working, and more appears. This is not delusion. This is creation through observation. Sacred insight. Attention is power. Whatever you observe with intention begins to gather energy and structure. You are not reacting to reality. You are helping build it with your gaze. The focus ritual. Choose one area of your life that feels small, broken, or stagnant. For the next 3 days, give it intentional focus. Not on what's wrong, but on what's possible. Speak about it positively. Imagine it thriving. Feel into what that would be like. Observe it with hope, with presence, with vision. You will notice the first shifts quickly, not because the thing has changed, but because the observer has. And where the observer goes, reality follows. Most people try to change their life by changing their behavior. They make lists, set goals, adjust routines. But lasting transformation doesn't begin with action. It begins with identity. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. And what you are is defined by what you believe yourself to be. Recalibrating identity means shifting the inner self to match the life you're trying to create. When you do, reality has no choice but to adjust. In 1948, a seamstress named Lorraine Mendez lived in a small Chicago apartment. She dreamed of owning her own clothing line, but believed she was just a worker. One night, while sketching designs by candlelight, a strange thought came to her. What if I'm not becoming a designer? What if I already am one? That sentence changed everything. From that moment forward, she began living from her future identity. She dressed the part, spoke as if her brand already existed, and approached every design with the seriousness of a visionary. Months later, a boutique owner discovered her work. Within a year, she had her first storefront. You see, the universe doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are being. If you see yourself as limited, you will unconsciously sabotage expansion. If you see yourself as chosen, worthy, and ready, your energy becomes magnetic. Your identity is the thermostat. You can't create sustainably from a setting you don't believe belongs to you. Shifting identity is not about faking. It's about updating, replacing the old definition of yourself with one that matches the life you desire. From I can't to I do, from I'm waiting to I am. Sacred insight. Who you believe you are is the most powerful statement you make to the universe. Reality bends around identity, not intention. The identity ritual. Choose one area of life you wish to transform. Now ask, who is the version of me that already lives that life? How do they move, think, decide, write it down? Then for one day, act from that identity. Speak from it, walk from it, let it lead. This is not pretend, it's a return to truth. Because when your inner self becomes the version that matches your desired life, the outer world has no option but to catch up. Before you arrived here, something was written, not in ink but in vibration, a pattern, a code, a blueprint unique to your essence. This is not fate, it is resonance. Your soul carries a signature frequency, and when you align with it, life begins to unfold in synchrony. Opportunities feel guided, encounters feel destined. It's not luck, it's alignment with your original design. In 1931, a violinist named Andres Leon played every note with technical perfection, but something was missing. Critics described his music as precise but hollow. Frustrated, he disappeared from the public for a year. He spent that time not practicing but listening, sitting beside rivers, walking forests, writing in silence. One day he picked up his violin and played not from memory but from emotion. The music was raw, imperfect, and alive. That night he wrote, "I finally played from the place I was built for." From then on, his performances stirred crowds to tears. He had tapped into his blueprint. You see, your soul carries preferences, rhythms, and gifts that don't come from logic, they come from origin. You feel them when something makes you light up, when time disappears, when you feel at home for no reason. Most people override this inner compass with expectation and conditioning. But when you listen closely, your blueprint speaks. Following your blueprint doesn't mean your life will be without challenge, but it will be charged with purpose. The path becomes clearer, decisions become intuitive, and obstacles become instructions, not obstructions. Sacred insight. You were not dropped here at random. You came coded with a path, and the more you honor that design, the more fulfillment finds you. The Blueprint Inquiry. Take 15 minutes today to reflect on the moments when you felt most alive. Not necessarily most successful, most aligned. What were you doing? How were you feeling? What energy surrounded you? Write down the themes. Then ask, how can I bring more of this frequency into my daily life? Start small. Speak more of your truth. Move toward what feels like home. When you walk your blueprint, the world meets you with open arms. Every decision you make branches reality. Each choice is a doorway into a different version of your life. You are not following one path. You are standing in a field of parallel possibilities, each waiting for your alignment. The life you desire isn't in some distant future. It's already real, just vibrating on a different frequency, waiting for you to step into it. In 1937, a young man named Thomas Fields stood at a train station with 2 tickets in his hand. One led to New York and a stable job with his uncle, the other to California, where he knew no one but dreamed of acting. He chose California. That one decision reshaped his entire timeline. Years later, he told his grandson, "Both versions of me still exist, but I only got to meet this one because I said yes to the unknown." You see, you're not locked into fate. You're choosing a reality every moment. Each thought, each belief, each feeling is a vote for a particular version of your life. Most people keep choosing the same past because it feels familiar, even if it hurts. But at any moment, you can pivot, select a new path, step into a new version. This is not fantasy, it's quantum truth. All outcomes already exist as probability. The one you experience depends on the version of you that you commit to being. Sacred insight. You are not walking down a single track. You are selecting timelines with every decision. Change the chooser, and the path must change. The timeline jump ritual. Think of a future reality you desire. Now ask, who is the version of me that lives that reality? What do they believe? How do they speak? Decide to embody that version for the next 24 hours. Not to perform, but to align. Watch what shifts. Notice what comes into view. The moment you choose a new self, you step into a new timeline, and that future begins to choose you back. Manifestation begins with thought, but thought alone doesn't create. It signals. What activates that signal is emotion. Emotion is the fire that brings your inner image to life. It's not about thinking of what you want. It's about feeling it, embodying it, becoming it. Feeling is the frequency that bridges the gap between idea and reality. In 1940, a nurse named Amelia Grant worked long shifts at a busy hospital. She dreamed of becoming a writer but never found the time. One night after a particularly emotional day, she wrote a letter to no one, a vivid, passionate imagining of her life as a novelist. She poured her heart into it, tears soaking the paper. The next week, a patient's daughter, a publisher, found the letter and offered to read her work. Amelia's first essay was printed 3 months later. You see, that letter was more than words. It was energy. Emotion activated the vision. The universe responds not to vague desires, but to frequency. When you feel as if something is already real, you become a match for it. Most people wait to feel until something happens, but feeling is not the effect. It is the cause. It is not the reward of manifestation. It is the gateway. Sacred insight. Thought begins creation, but emotion ignites it. The more vividly you feel, the more powerfully you attract. The feeling practice. Choose one desire, close your eyes, and imagine it vividly. Now feel it as if it's real. Not hope, certainty, not future, now. Let the emotion rise in your body. Breathe it in. This is your energetic signature. Carry that frequency into your day. Even if the form hasn't arrived yet, the field is already responding. Because emotion is not just an experience. It is the signal that sets your future in motion. Certainty changes everything. Not the certainty of arrogance, but the calm, quiet conviction that something is already yours. When you know, you don't chase. When you believe, you don't beg. You align. And the universe responds not to your need, but to your knowing. In 1925, a woman named Rosa Delaney baked bread in her tiny storefront in Savannah. Her shop was struggling, but every morning she would open her door with the same phrase, "I serve the best bread in the city." She said it with a smile, not as a boast, but as a truth she chose to embody. Within weeks, word spread. Crowds gathered. Her recipe hadn't changed. Her energy had. You see, belief is the signal that instructs reality. Certainty is the catalyst. It activates energy. It clarifies frequency. It shortens the timeline between desire and delivery. Doubt, even in small doses, delays creation, but certainty, pure, uncluttered, embodied, speeds it. This doesn't mean blind faith. It means choosing your truth before the world confirms it, not because you've seen the evidence, but because you've decided it is done. Sacred insight. Certainty is not the result of manifestation. It is the condition for it. The world bends to the one who knows. The certainty ritual. Identify one goal you've been hesitant about. Today, decide it is already unfolding. Speak it aloud as if it's fact. Walk as if it's done. When doubt arises, don't argue. Return to your knowing. Watch as life begins to move faster, clearer, closer. Certainty doesn't force, it invites, and reality answers swiftly when the invitation is sincere. Expectation is not passive. It is creative. Every moment you expect something, you are voting for it, electing it into your experience. Assumption is not just a mental habit. It is an energetic contract. What you assume to be true becomes your reality, not because of wishful thinking, but because assumption programs perception, emotion, and action. The world doesn't argue with your expectations. It fulfills them. In 1933, a bellhop named Curtis Lane worked at a hotel in New Orleans. He was polite but invisible, often ignored by guests and overlooked by management. One day, a traveling speaker asked him a simple question. "What do you expect when you walk into a room?" Curtis answered honestly, "That no one will notice me." The speaker nodded. "Then that is what you elect." That night, Curtis wrote a new sentence in his journal. "I expect to be seen." He repeated it each morning. Slowly, things shifted. Guests remembered his name. He received larger tips. The manager promoted him to concierge within a month. Nothing around him had changed until his assumption did. You see, assumptions operate beneath your conscious mind, subtly directing how you speak, what you notice, and how others respond to you. Expect rejection, and you'll prepare for it subconsciously. Closed body language, defensive tone, missed cues. Expect warmth, and your entire demeanor changes. People read your energy before you say a word. This is not superstition. It's neurology, emotion, and energy, all shaped by what you believe is coming next. You are the chooser, and the world responds to the choices you make without even realizing it. Sacred insight. Assumption is selection. What you consistently expect, you energetically choose, and the universe, neutral and precise, delivers accordingly. The assumption reset. Pick one situation you're currently unsure or nervous about. Now ask yourself, what am I assuming here? Be honest. Then choose a new assumption, one that feels empowering but believable. This will go well. They will understand me. Something good will come from this. Hold it, expect it, act from it. The shift may feel subtle, but the results won't be. Because what you expect, you elect, and life casts its vote in your favor. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't working. Beneath every surface, movement is happening. Seeds germinate underground before they bloom. The sun travels while it's still night, and your desires, once felt, intended, and believed, begin unfolding long before you see their reflection. This is unseen momentum, the quiet unfolding of what you've set in motion. The key is to trust it. In 1942, a writer named Eleanor Swift mailed a manuscript to 10 publishers. Weeks passed. Nothing. She assumed rejection and nearly gave up, but her friend, an artist, reminded her, ink travels slower than thought. Instead of spiraling, Eleanor began behaving as if success was on its way. She organized her notes, designed covers, and practiced gratitude. Days later, 3 acceptance letters arrived on the same morning, mailed weeks earlier, delayed by a postal strike. What Eleanor didn't realize at the time was that reality was already rearranging. Her energy had triggered a series of events outside her view. Her only job was to stay in alignment long enough to receive it. You see, the space between intention and manifestation is not empty. It is full of movement. Conversations are being had. Connections are being formed. The field is responding to your frequency. But if you panic in the waiting, if you doubt the process, you change the signal and stall the delivery. Patience is not passive, it is powerful. Trust is not ignorance, it is partnership with a larger intelligence. Sacred insight. Just because nothing is visible doesn't mean nothing is happening. The moment you emit a clear frequency, the field begins to respond, even if you can't see it yet. The momentum ritual. Think of a desire you've already sent out. An intention, a prayer, a vision. Instead of revisiting it with doubt, revisit it with faith. Say aloud, "It's already working." Then behave as if it is. Prepare for its arrival. Live in anticipation, not desperation. The invisible always precedes the visible, and the moment you believe in the momentum, you match the timeline where it arrives. How you see changes what you see. Perception isn't passive, it's directive. It tells your mind what to look for, your emotions how to feel, and your energy where to flow. Reality bends around the point of view you hold. The more consciously you choose your lens, the more power you gain to shape your outcomes. In 1930, a young surgeon named Alina Torres worked in overcrowded, under-resourced conditions. She could have seen chaos, limitation, and frustration, but instead, she chose to see opportunity. Every broken system is an invitation, she would say. Her team adopted her perspective. Morale improved. Efficiency increased. Donations began arriving. The hospital expanded. Years later, when asked what sparked the transformation, she answered, "It wasn't the funding, it was the frame." You see, perception isn't just how you interpret reality, it's how you program it. Focus on flaws and you strengthen them. Focus on potential and you amplify it. It's not delusion, it's redirection. The mind can only follow the story you give it. Choose to view delay as preparation, rejection as redirection, difficulty as refinement, and your emotional experience changes. With it, your frequency shifts. With that, outcomes follow. Sacred insight. You are not at the mercy of what is. You are empowered by how you see it. The lens is the lever. The perception shift. Choose one situation that feels stuck. Ask yourself, what am I making this mean? Then choose a new frame, one that gives you power. Even if the facts remain the same, the meaning has changed. And meaning is the software that runs your inner system. Install a new one and watch how the output follows. Language isn't just expression, it's creation. Every word you speak carries intention, vibration, and direction. You are casting spells with your mouth, sometimes for expansion, sometimes for limitation. What you say becomes what you see. Words program perception, set energetic tone, and create resonance in the field. Your language shapes your life. In 1926, a young man named Luther Quinn sold books door to door. He struggled for years, often saying aloud, "I'm no good at this." One day, a mentor overheard him and stopped him mid-sentence. "What you speak becomes your contract," he warned. "Why sign your own limitation?" From that moment, Luther changed his language. He began saying, "Every door brings something better." Within months, his sales tripled, not because of technique, but because of tone. He had changed the spell. You see, words are more than sound. They are selection. Saying, "I can't," seals the possibility shut. Saying, "It's happening," opens new pathways. Even casual phrases like, "I'm always tired," "Nothing ever works," or "I'm just unlucky," become declarations the universe echoes. Speak life and life responds. Speak defeat and reality complies. Your words are not reporting your life, they are building it. Sacred insight. Every word you speak is a seed. What you plant, you water with repetition. Choose your spells with care. The language audit. For one day, become radically aware of your words. Write down 3 phrases you say often. Ask, do these support the life I want? If not, replace them with language that aligns with your vision, not forced, conscious. Because the mouth does not just describe, it commands. And what you command with clarity begins to appear. Before a thought forms, something stirs, a sensation, a flash, a flicker of attention. Most miss it because they are too quick to grab the thought and run. But the power lies in the moment before, the space where you still have a choice. That pre-conscious awareness is your most potent place of creation. It's where you decide what kind of world to enter before you've even described it. In 1934, a poet named Elias Dane began meditating not for calm, but for observation. He would sit and notice the earliest movement before a thought arrived. It's like watching wind form on still water, he wrote. Before the wave, there's a shiver. He learned to rest in that space longer and longer. Over time, he realized that by choosing how to interpret that flicker, he could guide the next thought, and therefore, the next emotion, the next action, the next day. You see, most people live as reactors, but just 1 second of awareness before a thought lands can change your trajectory. That moment is where freedom lives. It's the pause before programming, the quiet before narrative. When you learn to notice that pre-thought space, you stop being a slave to automatic patterns. You become the composer. Sacred insight. The space before thought is the true seat of power. From it, you can redirect the mind and reshape reality from its source. The pre-thought practice. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Sit still. Breathe. Watch the surface of your awareness. Don't chase thoughts. Notice the moment before they land. When you feel one forming, gently ask, is this the thought I choose? If not, wait. Select another. With practice, you'll begin catching the current earlier until you're not just managing your mind, you're authoring it. From silence, from sovereignty, from the source. The universe doesn't whisper in words. It speaks in patterns. Look closely and you'll begin to notice the symmetry. Cycles repeating, people appearing at just the right moment. The same lesson showing up in different clothes. What you call coincidence is often sacred symmetry, inviting you to wake up and listen. These repeating rhythms are not random. They are cosmic clues pointing you inward. In 1929, an amateur astronomer named Greta Lang kept a notebook where she logged everything, from star positions to daily events. Over time, she began to notice something peculiar. When certain constellations were brightest, her most inspired thoughts appeared. At first, she dismissed it, but then it happened again and again. She began recording her thoughts alongside moon phases, weather, even emotions. Patterns emerged. What felt like chaos began to reveal coordination. It's as if the sky is in conversation with me, she wrote. But more than that, she realized her own life followed similar symmetry. Every time she resisted rest, illness arrived. Every time she chose courage, someone offered support. You see, life is not a mess. It is a message. Repeating emotions, recurring setbacks, familiar faces, they are patterns meant to be decoded, not to trap you, but to teach you. The same type of partner shows up? A cycle in finances, a wave of doubt before every breakthrough? These are not punishments. They are invitations to complete a pattern by becoming conscious of it. Patterns do not stop when you resist them. They stop when you understand them. Sacred insight. The universe is not random. It is rhythmic. And the more attuned you are to its patterns, the more fluently you speak its language. The pattern practice. Over the next few days, take note of anything that repeats. Numbers, names, challenges, dreams. Ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? Where have I seen this before? What shift is it calling for? Once you name the pattern, you weaken its grip. And when you respond consciously, the lesson completes and the loop gives way to something new. Some numbers don't just count, they communicate. You see them everywhere, on clocks, receipts, license plates, phone calls. At first, they seem like nothing, but then they repeat. 1111, 222, 404, the same numbers, again and again. These are not accidents, these are nudges. The universe doesn't speak your language, it speaks in symbols, and numbers are one of its clearest codes. In 1941, a train conductor named Luis Navarro began seeing 444 at every station. Ticket numbers, arrival times, locker keys. He laughed it off until a fortune teller boarded his train and gasped when she saw his ID tag, 444. "You are surrounded," she said, and guided. That night, curious, Luis looked up the meaning and discovered the number was often tied to protection, structure, and higher purpose. He took it as a sign to apply for a leadership role in the company, something he had long doubted he was worthy of. Weeks later, he was promoted. What Luis discovered is something many experience but few trust. Numbers carry frequency. They are not just quantities, they are messages. Each number holds a vibration, and when they show up in repetition, they are reflecting something active in your energy field. Ones signal beginnings. Twos call for balance. Threes vibrate with creativity. Fours bring order. Fives indicate change. And when they repeat, their meaning amplifies. You don't need to study numerology to feel their nudge. Just pay attention. Ask yourself, what was I thinking when I saw this? What decision am I avoiding? What direction am I being confirmed in? Sacred insight. Numbers are not coincidences. They are confirmation codes, signaling alignment or inviting adjustment. The number noticing practice. Today, begin to observe what numbers repeat around you. Don't force it, just notice. When one shows up consistently, pause, reflect. Ask what it might mean in the context of your current focus. You'll begin to realize you are never walking alone. There is a language beneath the surface, and numbers are part of its song. The universe is always in conversation with you, not in loud declarations, but in subtle symbols. A feather where none should be, a stranger repeating your thoughts, a song that answers your question. These are not coincidences. They are synchronicities, moments of alignment between an inner thought and outer reality. And when they begin to multiply, you are being shown the path. In 1935, a teacher named Elaine Carter stood at a crossroads in her life. Unsure whether to move to Paris, she asked the universe for a sign. That morning, a student gave her a book titled "Paris is Always a Good Idea." That afternoon, a bakery played a French waltz. That evening, a stranger on the street said, "You have the face of someone meant for Paris." She laughed, but she packed, and the move transformed her life. Synchronicities are not random. They are echoes of your own consciousness. When your internal world becomes clear and focused, the external world begins to mirror it. Through symbols, signs, and so-called coincidences, the more you notice them, the more they multiply. It is not magic, it is alignment. But the signs won't scream. They require presence, curiosity, receptivity, sacred insight. Synchronicity is proof that you are not separate from the field. You think, and reality answers. The sign practice. Choose a symbol to ask for, a feather, a number, a word. Ask clearly, then release. Don't obsess, just observe. When the sign appears, feel it. Let it remind you the universe is listening. And when you stay tuned in, it keeps speaking through whispers, not shouts. Your waking life is not the only time you're receiving guidance. Dreams are more than stories. They are messages, windows, simulations. In your dreams, your conscious mind softens and your subconscious speaks freely. Patterns rise, symbols appear, and sometimes you get answers you didn't know you were looking for. In 1946, a librarian named Marjorie Kell had the same dream for weeks. A staircase with one broken step. She ignored it until one day, rushing down the actual stairs at work, She missed a cracked step and nearly fell. That moment woke her twice. She began recording her dreams. Over time, they began offering more than warnings. They offered wisdom, direction, peace. Dreams bypass logic. They speak in archetypes and metaphor. A flooded room may reflect emotional overwhelm. A locked door might reveal resistance. You don't need to decode every detail. Just ask, what feeling remains? What action does this point to? Your soul doesn't sleep, and when the ego rests, deeper insight rises. Sacred insight. Dreams are not just echoes of the day, they are glimpses into the unfiltered wisdom of your inner world. The Dream Code Practice. Keep a notebook beside your bed. Each morning, write what you remember, even fragments. Don't analyze immediately. Wait. Patterns will emerge. Themes will return. When they do, listen. Act. Respect your dreams as messages from your own deep intelligence, and the conversation will deepen. Just before things get better, they often look worse. This isn't failure, it's feedback. Reality often inverts before it aligns. Darkness before dawn, doubt before clarity, breakdown before breakthrough. This is the law of inversion, and once you understand it, you stop panicking in the pause. In 1938, a woman named Sophia Leclerc worked for years to open a bookstore. The day before signing her lease, the building flooded. She was devastated, but the delay led her to a new space, twice the size and half the rent. It became a city landmark. She later wrote, "The universe didn't say no, it said, wait, I have better." You see, when energy begins to shift, the old form resists. Things that don't match your new vibration begin to crumble. It feels like regression, but it's a clearing. The storm doesn't mean you failed. It means your frequency is pushing out what no longer fits. This law is not punishment. It is precision. The illusion collapses so the truth can rise. Sacred insight. When life appears to fall apart, it may be falling into place. The delay, the detour, the difficulty, they often signal that your new timeline is loading. The inversion practice. When something appears to go wrong, pause. Ask, what if this is not rejection, but redirection? What if this is preparation, not punishment? Let go of panic. Anchor into trust. Often, the greatest shifts come right after it all seems lost, because that's when you're closest to the version of you that's ready to receive what's next. Beneath your daily choices, beyond the words you speak and the goals you pursue, live silent agreements, beliefs and vows you made without knowing. These are invisible contracts, written not on paper, but in emotion, in memory, in repetition. They sound like this: I must prove my worth. If I rest, I'll lose everything. Love is earned, not given. You didn't sign them in ink. They were absorbed through experience, modeled by family, culture, or trauma. But just because they were inherited doesn't mean you have to keep honoring them. In 1932, a seamstress named Frances Delgado worked 14-hour days in a New York garment factory. She never took breaks. Her co-workers admired her discipline, but Frances wasn't proud. She was afraid. Deep down, she believed if she slowed down, she would be replaced. That belief came from childhood, when her father lost his job after a single sick day. Without realizing it, Frances had signed a contract. Safety comes from overwork. It ran her life. One day, a friend asked her, "What are you so afraid of losing?" Frances didn't answer. That night, she wrote the phrase on a slip of paper and sat with it. For the first time, she questioned it. Is this true now? She asked herself. Who am I working for? Me or a contract I never agreed to? From that day, she began to shift. Small breaks, saying no, accepting help. Her health improved. Her work did too. You see, invisible contracts are often survival mechanisms, useful in the past, but toxic in the present. They limit joy, freedom, and growth. They run as background code, shaping how you show up in relationships, careers, even spirituality. Until you become aware of them, They dictate your reality. But here's the truth. Any agreement made unconsciously can be rewritten consciously. You can break the contract with suffering. You can dissolve the vow to stay small. You can choose freedom over fear. It begins not with struggle but with seeing. Name the belief and it begins to loosen. Sacred insight. The limits you face may not be fate, they may be old agreements. The moment you see them, you are free to amend them. The rewrite ritual. Find a quiet space. Write down one belief you carry that feels heavy or inherited. Now ask, where did this come from? Who gave it to me? Does it serve me now? If not, write a new agreement. Speak it aloud. Declare it like law. I now choose a contract of ease, worthiness, or love. Tear up the old one. Burn it if you must. Feel the shift. You are not bound by invisible contracts unless you keep honoring them. The future begins when you sign a new name at the bottom of your story. In every moment, countless realities orbit around you, unseen, untapped, waiting. These parallel timelines aren't fiction. They're possibilities, each encoded with a version of you who made a different choice. One said yes, one said no, one took the risk, one stayed safe. And all of them exist as options in the quantum field, shaped not by chance, but by choice. When you choose with clarity, you don't create reality, you select it. Every decision already exists. You are simply stepping into the version of yourself who already made it. In 1944, a watchmaker named Henry Lovell stood at the edge of a life-defining decision. Stay in London, where his routine was stable but soul-deadening, or accept an invitation to Switzerland to apprentice under a master horologist. He walked the streets for days, debating. On the night before his answer was due, he had a dream. Two versions of himself passing one another in a train station. One looked tired, hunched, mechanical. The other carried a quiet glow. They didn't speak, but both knew only one would be remembered. Henry woke with tears on his cheeks. He chose Switzerland. Years later, he reflected not on the move itself, but on what it revealed. That both lives had always been possible. He simply stepped into the one that resonated with his deepest truth. This is the essence of quantum choice. The universe isn't linear, it is layered. The future is not ahead of you, it is around you. Each possibility vibrates on a different frequency. Your choices are tuning forks. They don't just shift what you do, they shift who you become. Most people think they're waiting for the right option, but in truth, the options are waiting for you, waiting for your coherence, your alignment, your readiness to become the version of you who already lives what you desire. And here lies the paradox. Choosing isn't about control, it's about resonance. You don't force the outcome, you embody the frequency. You don't chase the path, you become the one who walks it. When you stop fearing the wrong choice and start trusting your internal compass, the quantum field responds. Doors open, signs appear, the world reorganizes to support the timeline you've claimed. Sacred insight. Every version of your life already exists in the field of possibility. When you choose with energy, belief, and alignment, you step into the version that matches your inner world. The timeline selection practice. Identify one decision you've been postponing. Instead of analyzing the pros and cons, ask, which version of me already lives the outcome I desire? What does that version feel like? Think like, move like. Step into that frequency. Write a letter from their perspective. Then make the choice, not from fear or logic, but from embodiment. Reality will follow the signal you send, because you are not waiting for the future, you are electing it right now. There is a sacred space most people never see. It's not marked on any map. It can't be timed by clocks or measured by words. It exists in the quiet gap between stimulus and response, thought and reaction, desire and action. This is the pause portal, the most powerful moment in your entire day. It's where destiny shifts, not because something happens, but because you choose who you are before the world decides for you. So In 1939, a telephone operator named Florence Wynne began noticing her emotional patterns. A sharp tone from a customer would trigger defensiveness. A missed connection would spiral into frustration. Then one evening, exhausted from a 12-hour shift, she simply sat in the silence after a rude call and didn't respond. She breathed. She waited. The urge to react passed like a cloud. In its place came calm, presence. Her next words were kind, clear, and effective. That moment changed everything. Florence began practicing the pause, making it a ritual. Over the months, her reputation shifted. People described her as steady, grounded, unusually wise. But Florence knew the truth. She wasn't perfect. She had just found the portal and learned to stand in it. You see, the pause is not emptiness. It is creation. The split second where you can shift from unconscious to conscious, where you choose not to repeat the past, but initiate the future. Most people live in reaction, chained to momentum, but in the pause you reclaim authorship. You stop being a character and become the scriptwriter. And the portal isn't only emotional, it's energetic. Every pause you take before speaking, posting, responding, or deciding recalibrates your vibration. You shift the entire trajectory of what happens next by being still for just a breath longer than usual. Sacred insight. The pause is not absence. It is potential. It is where old patterns dissolve and new timelines open. The pause ritual. Begin with one pause a day. Choose a moment where you normally react. Stress, criticism, distraction. When the impulse to respond arises, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, who do I want to be right now? What timeline am I choosing? Then act, not from urgency, but from clarity. Over time, the pause becomes a portal you enter at will, a doorway into mastery, presence, and conscious power. Life will repeat itself until you learn to see the pattern, that painful relationship, that last-minute sabotage, that feeling of, this always happens to me. These aren't coincidences or cosmic punishments. They are loops, energy cycles, unconscious scripts playing on repeat. Reality mimics what you believe, feel, and expect over and over until you interrupt the rhythm and write a new score. If you want to change your reality, you must first recognize where you're caught in repetition. To break the spell, you must break the loop. In 1938, a traveling salesman named Clive Wren found himself on his third job in 5 years. Every time success began to bloom, something would unravel. Conflict, poor timing, unexpected loss. He blamed luck. He blamed others. But one night, stranded on a snow-covered road, he pulled out his journal and wrote the phrase, "Why does this always happen to me?" Then he stopped and read it again. The weight of it hit him, always. That was the key. He realized it wasn't just the circumstances repeating, it was him. The way he showed up, the stories he told, the assumptions he carried. He wasn't just living life, he was reliving it. From that night on, Clive made a vow. When familiar discomfort appeared, he would pause and ask, "Is this a loop?" He started choosing different responses, speaking when he normally stayed silent, staying when he normally ran. The patterns began to dissolve. Opportunities lasted, relationships deepened. It wasn't magic, it was pattern disruption. You see, the unconscious mind favors familiarity. It recreates scenarios not because they serve you, but because they're known. The ego would rather suffer predictably than succeed unpredictably. That's why you'll keep attracting the same kind of partner, the same kind of obstacle, the same type of rejection, until you become conscious of the pattern and respond differently. And here's the power. The moment you change your reaction, you change the script. A loop is a circle. One new choice breaks the line and creates a spiral, upward, outward, new. Sacred insight. Reality will echo your past until you offer it a different vibration. The loop ends where your awareness begins. The loop-breaking practice. Identify one pattern in your life that keeps returning. Write it down in one sentence. Then ask, what is the belief underneath this pattern? What is the payoff for keeping it? Who would I be without it? Then choose one different response next time it appears. A different word, a different tone, a different boundary. It doesn't have to be dramatic, it just has to be new. That small shift is the spell breaker, because once you respond with awareness, the loop can no longer hold you. It collapses and the story begins again, not from where you were, but from who you've now become. The universe is not rewarding you or testing you. It is responding to you, not to your words or wishes, but to your frequency. Everything in existence vibrates, and those vibrations seek harmony. This is the resonance principle. Like attracts like, not as a concept, but as a law. Your internal state draws external matches. Your energy calls in its equal. If you want to change what shows up around you, you must first shift what's moving within you. In 1941, a jazz pianist named Amelia Sloan played nightly at a downtown lounge in Detroit. Her talent was undeniable, but the room was always half empty. She played with doubt in her chest, always bracing for criticism. One night, as she stepped onto the stage, she paused. Instead of starting with music, she closed her eyes and summoned the feeling of being celebrated, not remembered, not recognized, resonated. She let that feeling flood her fingers. The room fell silent. By the end of her set, strangers had gathered around the piano. The next night, the room was full. Nothing had changed in her technique. Her vibration had changed. And reality followed. You see, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Wanting implies lack. Resonating implies embodiment. If you desire peace but carry chaos, the frequency doesn't match. If you desire love but carry fear, the signal scrambles. But when you become the vibration of what you seek, the world responds with stunning precision. And resonance works both ways. It's why your mood shifts around certain people, why some places feel nourishing while others drain you. Energy doesn't lie, it harmonizes. And when you understand this, you stop chasing. You start tuning. This is not about pretending, it's about remembering the core of who you are and letting that energy lead. It's not about trying harder, it's about vibrating truer. Sacred insight. Your reality is a mirror reflecting your dominant frequency. The clearer your signal, the more precise the reflection. The resonance tuning practice. Choose one experience you want to call in. Love, creativity, abundance. Close your eyes and ask, what is the vibration of this reality? How does it feel in the body? How would I walk, speak, and decide from this state? Begin to embody that feeling now. Let your tone reflect it. Let your posture reflect it. For the next hour, carry the frequency as if it's already yours, not because you're trying to attract it, but because you are it. Watch how people respond. Watch how your world starts to echo back the new sound you're singing. Because resonance is not a wish, it is a law, and you are always broadcasting the future you're ready to receive. There is a power more potent than force, more enduring than strategy, more graceful than hustle. It is magnetism, the quiet authority of someone who is aligned with what they desire. While force pushes, magnetism pulls. Force chases outcomes. Magnetism attracts them. Most people have been conditioned to believe that effort equals value. But in the universe, energy speaks louder than effort. When you align with who you truly are, what is meant for you doesn't need to be hunted. It arrives. In 1942, a seamstress named Naomi Bird dreamed of owning a boutique, but she had no money and no connections. So, like most, she pushed. She worked double shifts, wrote letters to investors, begged for space. Nothing moved. One morning, exhausted and disheartened, she sat on a bench with a sketch pad and simply began drawing again, for herself, not for approval. For weeks, she did nothing but design and dream. She let go of the chase. And that's when the owner of a local shop passed by, noticed her work, and offered to showcase one of her pieces. Within months, Naomi was running her own space. She hadn't forced it. She had become a match for it. You see, Magnetism is not about doing nothing. It's about doing from alignment, not desperation. When you act from inner truth, your energy becomes irresistible. People, opportunities, and ideas respond to coherence. The clearer your frequency, the stronger your pull. Force often comes from fear, the fear that what you want won't come unless you chase it. But that vibration tells the universe you don't trust the process. And trust is the gatekeeper of flow. Magnetism comes from knowing, a deep, steady resonance that says, I don't need to chase what's mine, it's already looking for me. Sacred insight, what you align with will arrive. You don't have to force the outcome, you only have to become a match for it. The magnetic alignment practice. Choose one goal or desire you've been chasing. Ask yourself, am I aligned with this or am I trying to force it? What would the magnetic version of me do today? Shift your posture, loosen your grip, replace effort with embodiment. Visualize yourself as a magnet, drawing the right people and timing to you. Let the energy lead. The more you radiate truth, the more life organizes to support it. When you are inside a story, it controls you. Your thoughts race, emotions swell, and choices shrink to reaction. But the moment you step outside that story, everything changes. You gain clarity, peace, and power. This is the third perspective, the observer's view, detached yet present. It is not cold or distant. It is calm, it is wisdom, and it is where your true freedom begins. In 1931, a courtroom stenographer named Elijah Bram worked silently at trials day after day. One case struck him deeply, a bitter inheritance dispute that ended in violence. As the family shouted, Elijah noticed something strange. While their emotions swirled, his role required stillness. He heard every word, recorded every nuance, but felt none of the chaos. He was in it, but not of it. That night he wrote, "They all lost themselves. I didn't. I was the witness." From that moment, Elijah began applying the same posture to his own life, watching his reactions, his inner stories, with the same neutral gaze. Over time, he became unshakable, not numb, aware. You see, detachment is not indifference. It's the ability to observe without being pulled under. From the third perspective, you don't deny your feelings. You just don't drown in them. You notice your anger without becoming it. You witness your fear without obeying it. Most people live from the first perspective, the self. Others default to the second, the other's view shaped by judgment or approval. But the third perspective is sacred. It's the higher vantage point where clarity returns. From there, you can choose your response, shift your energy, and realign with your power. This perspective doesn't come from escape. It comes from awareness. The moment you say, "Look at that thought," instead of "I am that thought," you step into freedom. Sacred insight. Detachment is not disconnection. It is depth. It is the power to see clearly while staying centered. The observer practice. When triggered or overwhelmed, pause. Close your eyes. Imagine stepping back from your mind, like stepping back from a screen. Watch the scene, the emotion, the thought, without judgment. Ask yourself, what do I see that I couldn't see before? The third perspective is always available, and once you access it, no situation owns you. You reclaim the pen to write a new ending. There are moments when something stirs inside you before the world gives you a reason. You feel a tug towards someone you haven't seen in years. You're drawn to a place you can't explain. You avoid a road without knowing why. These are not coincidences. They are signals from the future, messages from your expanded self reaching back through time to guide your path. When honored, they protect. When followed, they direct. This is not fantasy. It is the quiet precision of intuition unbound by linear time. In 1943, a painter named Lucia Renard lived in a quiet village in Brittany. She had never left her country, never traveled beyond her province. Yet one morning she awoke with a vivid dream, herself walking beneath the red lanterns of Kyoto, Japan. The image clung to her like mist. For weeks she dismissed it, but the pull grew stronger. She began sketching scenes from the dream. A collector visiting from Tokyo saw one of her drawings and was stunned. He recognized the street. He invited her to Japan to exhibit her work. The dream had not been imagination, it had been information. Lucia would later write, "My future sent me an invitation. I accepted it with a pencil." You see, time is not a straight line. Consciousness exists beyond its sequence. Your future self, already living the reality you desire, can send impressions, urges, even warnings. Most people override them with logic. They want proof before they follow. But the proof comes after the leap, not before. Premonitions aren't predictions. They are instructions from a timeline you are close to matching. Follow them, and that timeline becomes accessible. Ignore them, and it fades into the fog of what could have been. Signals from the future often feel like déjà vu, subtle knowing, or irrational inspiration. They rarely scream. They whisper. The question is not, "Can I trust this?" The question is, "Can I afford not to?" Sacred insight. Your intuition is not a guess. It is an echo. A memory from a moment your mind hasn't reached, but your soul already knows. The signal listening practice. Reflect on a moment when you felt a pull toward something or someone that didn't make sense, yet turned out to be meaningful. Then ask, what have I been feeling drawn to lately? What small urges have I ignored? Choose one and follow it. Call the person, take the detour, sit with the idea, see what opens. The more you honor these whispers, the louder they become, because the future is not waiting to surprise you, it's waiting to meet you. And every nudge you follow is a step toward the version of you that already knows the way. Beneath your words, your choices, your personality, there is a frequency, a pulse, a tone, a resonance, uniquely yours. This is your soul's vibration. It doesn't speak in sentences, it speaks in presence, in how your energy feels in a room, in the invisible wake you leave behind. Your soul's vibration is not something you create. It is something you remember, then express. In 1937, a woman named Elise Moran played cello for a local orchestra in Vienna. Technically gifted, she could replicate any score with flawless precision. But something was missing. Her teacher once said, "You are hitting every note, but none of them are yours." Confused, she began to experiment, not with the music, but with herself. She stopped trying to impress and started to feel. She played from joy, from grief, from memory. Her tone changed. Audiences wept. They didn't know why. It wasn't the music. It was her. Her soul had finally begun to speak. You see, your soul doesn't need permission to exist, but it does require space to express. Most people silence it with conformity, roles, and performance. They try to be palatable instead of powerful. But your truest impact comes not from being perfect, but from being authentic. Your soul's vibration isn't something you have to explain. It is something others feel. It is your presence when you are fully yourself, unmasked, unguarded, alive. And when you live from that space, reality responds. You draw people who recognize your essence, opportunities that match your tone, circumstances that reflect your signature frequency, not because you chased them, but because you stopped hiding. Sacred insight. You are most magnetic when you are most yourself. Your soul's vibration doesn't need translation, it needs expression. The expression practice. Ask yourself, when do I feel most like myself? Who am I when I'm not performing, pleasing, or protecting? Write freely. Let your answers guide how you move through the day. Wear what resonates. Speak without rehearsing. Create without worrying who approves. Let your presence vibrate from truth, not expectation. The more you live from that place, the more your life harmonizes with it. Because your soul isn't trying to fit in. It came to stand out, and in doing so, call home everything that was always meant for you. The world you walk through is not separate from you. It is made of you. Every person you meet, every situation you enter, every challenge you face is a reflection, not always of what you consciously think, but of the energy you hold, the lessons you carry, and the beliefs you've accepted. This is the holographic mirror, reality as a precise, multi-dimensional reflection of your inner world. Not a surface reflection, but a symbolic one, not literal, but unmistakably aligned. In 1940, a man named Marcel Duval moved to Paris to escape a past he couldn't shake. Failed relationships, financial hardship, a trail of abandonment, a new city, he told himself, a fresh start. Yet within months, the same stories repeated, a failed partnership, a betrayal. He sat one day at the Seine, wondering if he was cursed, but a conversation with a street poet changed everything. "You didn't escape," the poet said. "You brought your mirror with you." That night, something cracked. Marcel began tracking his reactions. He noticed how he expected disappointment, how he hardened against kindness, how he carried the past like a lens. He began to soften, forgive. He practiced openness. Slowly, the mirror changed. A friend became a mentor. A chance encounter led to a stable job. Marcel hadn't just changed cities, he had changed frequencies. You see, life reflects not only your current state, but also your unconscious truths. If you believe people can't be trusted, you'll magnetize experiences that prove it. If you believe you're not enough, the world will echo your insecurity. But when you shift your inner reality, the mirror shifts with it. This isn't about blame, it's about power. You're not the victim of the mirror, you're its source. And once you understand that, you can stop fixing reflections and begin transforming the projector. Sacred insight. The outer world is a holographic reflection of your inner patterns. Change within, and the world reconfigures accordingly. The mirror practice. Choose a recurring challenge, something that keeps showing up. Ask, what might this be reflecting back to me? What belief or emotion is it mirroring? Be honest. Then shift something in you. Release the grudge. Affirm your worth. Trust the good. Watch how life begins to echo the new vibration. Because reality doesn't happen to you, it happens through you, and the mirror always follows the image you hold. There is a version of you who already lives the life you're dreaming of. They move with assurance, speak with clarity, and make choices without hesitation. This version of you isn't separate. It exists on a parallel frequency, waiting to be activated. You do not need to become them through struggle. You need to remember them, embody them, and step into their identity now. This is the power persona, not a mask you wear, but the future self you consciously claim. In 1936, a woman named Coral Jensen worked as a filing clerk in a dusty Chicago records office. Every morning she walked through the revolving door with her head low, her voice quiet, her dreams pushed down beneath layers of practicality. But each evening as she left work, she passed by the grand windows of a local theater and imagined herself on stage, not in fantasy, but with vivid conviction. One night, instead of walking by, she paused. Something inside her shifted. The image she saw wasn't wishful, it was inevitable. The next morning she dressed differently. She held her posture higher. At lunch, she stood and recited a poem aloud at a community open mic. She didn't wait until she made it to act like her future self. She became her. By the end of that year, Coral was no longer filing papers. She was being paid to speak, to teach, to inspire. She had stepped into her power persona, and the world restructured around her. You see, most people delay their transformation. They believe they'll become confident once they succeed. They'll speak boldly once they're respected. They'll act like a leader once they've been crowned one. But energy doesn't wait for evidence. Energy leads. If you continue to show up as the version of you who doubts, hesitates, or shrinks, the world will mirror that back. But the moment you embody the version who already has the thing, before proof, before applause, you send a signal. Reality must catch up. The power persona is not about pretending, it's about practicing. You are not lying when you act like your future self. You are aligning. You are choosing to collapse time by becoming now who you once thought you'd become someday. The body believes what it rehearses, the mind follows your lead, and the field around you reorganizes itself to reflect your identity. You don't need more time, you need to shift the channel you're broadcasting from. Tomorrow doesn't bring the person brings tomorrow. Close your eyes. Imagine the version of you who already lives your desired life. Watch how they speak, how they stand, how they handle both setbacks and praise. Now open your eyes and carry that energy into your next task. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for a reason. Be them. Dress as them. Walk as them. And the world, recognizing your frequency, will begin to bend to the truth of who you already are. Transformation doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. Becoming your higher self is not a single act of inspiration. It is the practice of becoming again and again until your elevated state becomes your natural state. The version of you who lives in alignment with purpose, clarity, and abundance is not out of reach. It's simply built through daily repetition. Your higher self is already within you. To bring them forward, you must act like them on purpose until it becomes automatic. In 1940, a grocer named Alvin Reed spent most of his days in stress and survival. His life was predictable but never peaceful. He often said, "I know I'm meant for more." Yet each morning he repeated the same anxious rhythm: rush, worry, react, complain. One day his daughter asked him a question that stopped him cold. "If you already were the man you want to be, what would you do differently today?" He didn't answer. He simply stared. The next morning, Alvin woke up earlier. He sat in silence before opening the store. He greeted his first customer with presence. He adjusted his posture. Nothing radical, just subtle shifts. He began to live in the habit of his higher self. Weeks turned to months, and everything changed. His health improved. Opportunities found him. His shop expanded, not because of effort, but because of identity. You see, your higher self is not a fantasy. It's a frequency. And the key to staying there is habit. Not just action, but emotional habit. Mental habit. How does your higher self speak to themselves? What do they do when they're discouraged? What do they say no to? These are not grand gestures, they are rituals of being. Repeat them long enough and your brain rewires. Your body memorizes peace. Your nervous system starts responding to life from expansion, not contraction. Most people wait to feel elevated before they act elevated. But the reverse is true. The action comes first, the feeling follows, and the identity is built one micro-choice at a time. Sacred insight. You don't have to feel ready to start living as your higher self. You just have to start. Habit will carry you where motivation cannot. The embodiment practice. Choose one trait your higher self embodies: confidence, calm, decisiveness. Now choose one small action you'll take each morning to express that trait. Maybe it's standing taller, speaking last, or eating slower. Anchor that action with intention. As you repeat it daily, notice how your internal state begins to shift. This is not pretending. This is pre-becoming, and with every repetition, the old version of you dissolves, and your true self steps forward. You are not merely reacting to life. You are sculpting it. Like an artist before a block of marble, you are shaping experience with every thought, every emotion, every expectation. Most people wait to see what life will give them, but the sculptor doesn't wait for the statue to reveal itself. They decide what's inside and chip away until it appears. Reality is the same. It doesn't form by accident. It forms in response to intention, especially when that intention is sharp, certain, and emotionally charged. In 1939, a carpenter named Theo Knox dreamed of building his own home. Each year he saved, but something always disrupted his plan. Unexpected costs, lost jobs, sickness. One day, while reading a book on Renaissance art, he paused at a quote, "See it first in your mind, then remove what is not it." He closed the book and realized he had never truly seen his home. He had hoped, wished, but not decided. That night he sketched the layout, chose the color of the windows, selected the wood. He held the image so clearly that every thought that contradicted it lost its grip. He stopped speaking about delays and started acting like it was already underway. The land appeared. Supplies came cheaper than expected. Neighbors offered help. Within a year, the house stood, an echo of a thought once blurred, now crystallized. You see, the universe is highly obedient, but it can only respond to clarity. A vague wish sends a vague signal. A focused decision acts like a chisel, shaping the unformed into form. When you become clear, consistent, and emotionally aligned, the field responds. Options open. Momentum builds. The image in your mind becomes a structure in your world. But most people muddy their creation with contradiction. They say, "I want abundance," while constantly rehearsing lack. They say, "I want love," while expecting abandonment. The sculptor cannot hesitate. The sculptor knows what to cut. Sacred insight. Your reality is not formed by chance. It is formed by clarity. Your decisions carve the shape of your experience. The sculptor's ritual. Choose one outcome you want to create. Define it in detail, not just what it looks like, but how it feels, what it changes, who it touches. Write it, then ask, what thoughts, habits, or language are not part of this vision? Begin removing them. Replace them with alignment. Each time you act in harmony with your vision, the chisel hits stone. Over time, what was once invisible becomes undeniable. Not because life gave it to you, but because you sculpted it from the unseen. There will be moments when the facts tell one story, and your vision tells another. The numbers won't add up. The doors will seem closed. The people around you will say, "Be realistic." And if you wait for the facts to validate your desire, you will stay exactly where you are. But the path to creation doesn't begin with evidence. It begins with conviction. The world doesn't give you a reason to believe. It responds when you choose to believe anyway. In 1934, a violinist named Samuel Lorne auditioned for orchestras across the East Coast. Time after time, he was told the same thing: not quite right. His technique was solid, but his style didn't fit the moment. Friends urged him to take a teaching job instead, but Samuel saw something they didn't. He envisioned himself on stage, not just playing music, but changing people through it. He stopped auditioning for approval and started performing from truth. Each evening, he played his own compositions in a park outside a busy train station. People began stopping, then lingering, then returning with friends. One night, a conductor from a major symphony happened to pass through and stayed for the full performance. He offered Samuel a place not because of reputation, but resonance. The orchestra needed his sound. His truth had created a place before the world acknowledged it. You see, truth precedes fact. When you hold your vision with devotion, the evidence must catch up. But if you collapse into doubt because reality hasn't confirmed your hope yet, you reinforce what already is. Manifestation bends around sustained belief, not temporary desire. And truth does not require approval. It requires commitment. It requires that you stand in the middle of contradiction and say, "I still choose this," not as wishful thinking, but as creative force. Sacred insight. Facts describe current form. Truth commands future form. Reality shifts when you hold your vision longer than the evidence holds its ground. The vision holding practice. Bring to mind a dream or goal you've nearly abandoned because it's not happening. Revisit the vision, not as hope, but as knowing. See it, feel it. Then ask, what version of me already lives this reality? How do they hold themselves? Begin acting from that space. And when doubt arises, say aloud, "This may not be visible yet, but it is already true." Repeat this like a mantra. Facts will follow the frequency you sustain. That's not delusion, that's design. Faith is not a thought. It is not a feeling. It is not a desperate hope whispered into the dark. Faith is a frequency, a steady, anchored vibration that says it is already done. It doesn't fluctuate with mood. It doesn't demand signs. It doesn't look around to check if it's working. It radiates certainty, even in silence. Belief can still carry doubt. Faith lives in embodiment. In 1945, a dressmaker named Ana Velázquez survived on small commissions, sewing by candlelight in her cramped apartment. She dreamed of launching a fashion line, though she had no savings, no backers, no invitation. Still, each day she ironed and stitched as if preparing for a Paris runway. She designed as if orders were already in motion. When asked why she worked so diligently without clients, she answered, "Because I've already received the invitation. They just haven't sent it yet." Months later, a socialite visiting from Madrid wandered into Ana's shop while her driver's car was being repaired. She bought 3 gowns. Her influence brought others. Ana's name began appearing in magazines. The invitation came, but the real shift happened earlier, when Ana decided to live in the vibration of faith. Not waiting, not bargaining, but being. Faith isn't passive. It walks as if the road is already paved. It speaks as if the outcome is already known. It prepares as if the arrival is guaranteed. This is not delusion, it is resonance. When you embody the vibration of your desired reality, you summon it faster. Most people try to have faith through effort, but real faith feels light. Faith doesn't force. It rests inside decision. Sacred insight. Faith is not something you hope for. It's something you tune to. It's a vibration you live in long before the form appears. The faith frequency practice. Choose one desire or goal you're holding. Close your eyes and step into the version of you who already has it. Feel how they breathe, how they walk, how they speak. Now bring that version into your day. Set the table before the guest arrives. Prepare the speech before you're invited to speak. Faith is not in the waiting. Faith is in the living. The field reads frequency, not hope. And when you become the match, the form can't help but find you. The most powerful architect of your life is not the world around you, but the image you hold of yourself. Self-image is not vanity. It is vibration. It is the internal script that tells reality who you believe you are. Every success, every relationship, every repeated struggle, these are not just outcomes. They are mirrors of your internal identity. When you shift the story inside, the world outside cannot help but realign. In 1935, a man named Lewis Harrow worked as a clerk in a dusty shipping office. Every day, he watched others rise while he stayed in place. One afternoon, his supervisor called him lazy in front of a customer. Lewis laughed it off, but something stuck. That night, while walking home, he heard an old phrase in his head, "I've always been a burden." He didn't know where it came from, perhaps childhood, perhaps long before, but he realized it had become a silent mantra. He saw himself as someone who was in the way, not on the way. Louis decided to experiment. The next morning he stood in the mirror and whispered, "I am a man of value." He said it every day. At first, it felt like a lie, but soon small things changed. He took more initiative. He spoke with more ease. People responded differently. Within months, he was promoted, not because the job changed, but because he did. His outer world followed the contours of his self-image. You see, your subconscious doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you believe you are. You can rehearse affirmations, visualize all day, take action endlessly. But if your internal story still sees you as small, undeserving, or invisible, that will be the blueprint the world copies. Reality does not argue with your self-perception. It echoes it. But self-image is not fixed. It is programmed. And anything programmed can be rewritten. You do not have to prove yourself to change. You only have to choose a new frame, speak a new story, practice a new way of being until the mirror forgets the old one. Sacred insight. The outer world adjusts itself to match the inner picture you carry. Change your self-image, and everything else must catch up. The identity alignment practice. Choose one area of life that feels out of sync. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself in this area? Write down the story. Be honest. Now write the version your higher self holds. Say it aloud, slowly. Repeat it until the words begin to feel less foreign and more familiar. Move through your day holding that version. Speak from it. Decide from it. Even if the world hasn't caught up yet, your energy has. And reality is listening. You don't attract what you want. You don't even attract what you work for. You attract what you are, not on paper, not in intention, but in frequency. The greatest block to receiving is believing you must chase it. The most powerful shift in manifestation happens not when you try harder, but when you become the one who already has what you seek. There is a version of you who isn't searching, who isn't lacking, who isn't waiting. That version is available now. You don't need to earn it. You need to live it. In 1944, a man named Robert Hale worked as a night janitor in a library. Each night, while polishing floors, he passed shelves of law books and imagined himself arguing cases, standing in courtrooms. One night, he whispered to the silence, "What would it feel like to already be him?" He stood a little taller. He practiced gratitude as if the degree was already in his hand. He held conversations with himself as if he were already called counselor. That single question became a portal. 2 years later, with no formal invitation, he was offered a scholarship to study. By 1950, he was standing in court, exactly as imagined. Robert hadn't begged the universe. He'd shifted his center. He stopped identifying with lack and began living as if. The world, obedient to frequency, rearranged itself to meet the new pattern. You see, when you operate from the place of wanting, you signal separation. You confirm that it's not yours, and the field listens. But when you align with the version of you who already lives the life, has the love, enjoys the success, you collapse the timeline. The gap closes. This isn't pretending. It's precise alignment. You don't fake the reality. You embody the identity. From that state, action flows naturally, synchronicities increase, and life begins to bend in response. Sacred insight. You don't manifest by reaching. You manifest by remembering, by stepping into the frequency where you already are what you once thought you had to chase. The embodiment ritual. Choose a desire that still feels far away. Close your eyes and ask, if I already had this, who would I be right now? Notice how you would carry yourself, how you would breathe, think, speak. Now become that version. For the next 24 hours, let that identity guide your steps. Every time you feel the old self rise, pause, realign. You don't need more time. You need more alignment, because the version of you that has it isn't somewhere else. They are waiting for you to step in. The loudest power is not always the most potent. True creation often moves in silence, in grace, in ease. The most magnetic people are not those who force, they're the ones who know. The ones who carry a quiet confidence, who no longer argue with life or their place in it. They do not resist, they allow. And in that allowing, they radiate the kind of presence that bends reality. In 1939, a woman named Harriet Bloom worked behind the counter of a small stationery shop. She was kind, skilled, and overlooked. She watched others get promoted or praised while she stayed in the background. Then one day, something shifted. She decided she was no longer going to seek approval. She stopped trying to prove. She stopped over-explaining. She simply began to move from knowing. She trusted her worth. She answered with calm. She showed up with stillness, not because she had no fire, but because she no longer needed noise to feel valid. Within weeks, people responded differently. Customers lingered, management noticed. She was offered a larger role, not because she campaigned for it, but because she carried the frequency of someone who already had it. You see, resistance creates noise. It creates friction. When you try to force life to see you, to fix you, to reward you, you place your power outside of yourself. But confidence lives in the body, like breath. It doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't ask for permission. It settles in. Non-resistance is not weakness. It is refinement. It says, I don't chase, I align. It doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you act without inner argument. You move with coherence, not chaos. And from that place, your energy speaks louder than your words. The field around you responds to clarity. Confidence is clarity without the volume. When you stand in your worth, not loudly, but truly, life listens, and so does everyone else. Sacred insight. You don't need to force the world to take you seriously. You only need to stop arguing with your own presence. From there, power becomes quiet, and creation becomes certain. The confidence practice. For one full day, practice holding your energy without explaining yourself. Speak slower. Move with calm. Trust your pace. When insecurity rises, don't silence it. Just smile at it. Let it pass like weather. Feel into your core and remind yourself, I am already enough. Say less. Radiate more. The world feels your vibration before it hears your voice. And when your inner world stops resisting itself, the outer world aligns in kind. Every reality is shaped by a story, and every story is shaped by a script. That script is your identity, the quiet, repeating narrative that defines what you expect, what you tolerate, and what you pursue. The problem is, most people are living inside a story they didn't write, a script they inherited, a voice from childhood or society or pain that said, this is who you are. But here's the truth. Identity isn't fixed. It's flexible. You can change the story, and when you do, the entire world becomes a different play. In 1932, a piano teacher named Walter Lane lived with the belief that he was a background character. He taught others to shine, but never took the stage. He had talent, but his story said, you're not meant to be seen. One day, his student asked, why don't you perform? He laughed, but the question echoed. That night, he opened his old journal and read pages of dreams he'd hidden. A quiet decision formed, not to prove anything, but to reclaim his authorship. He began referring to himself not as a teacher, but as an artist. He booked a small performance, then another. Within 2 years, Walter was composing music that reached thousands. The shift wasn't external. It began the moment he rewrote his role. You see, your current reality flows from your current identity. If your story says, I'm always the one who's passed over, the universe reflects that. If your story says, I only thrive in chaos, then peace feels unsafe. But when you revise the script, you rewire the structure. You don't have to wait to become someone new. You have to decide to be them now, not performatively, but inwardly. The moment you shift identity, you shift frequency. The world doesn't resist, it adjusts. Sacred insight. You are not your past story. You are the storyteller, and every script can be rewritten by the one brave enough to edit the lines. The rewrite ritual. Write down a story you've been living that no longer serves you. Name the identity it has kept you in. Now write the new version. Define the character you're ready to become. How do they think? Speak? Respond to setbacks? For the next 3 days, live from that script. When the old lines rise, say, that story has ended. Repeat the new ones like dialogue until they feel real, because they are, and every time you choose your story, life adapts the scene. The most liberating truth you will ever accept is this. No one is coming. Not to rescue you, not to validate you, not to hand you the life you dream of. And once you stop waiting, everything begins. This isn't despair, it is power, because the moment you realize that you are the source, the switch flips. Responsibility becomes fuel. You stop outsourcing your worth and start directing your destiny. In 1938, a woman named Mabel King waited every week for a letter that never came, from a man who had once promised to return and build a life with her. For months, she paused her plans, declined offers, silenced her ambition. One evening, she stood in the rain holding an umbrella that wasn't keeping her dry, and the truth cracked open inside her. He's not coming. No one is. The weight lifted. That night she wrote, "From this day on, I will be my own cause." She enrolled in a seamstress program. She opened a shop. She never looked back. You see, most people are waiting on an apology, an opportunity, a lucky break, a clearer sign, but life doesn't begin when you're saved. It begins when you claim yourself. Radical responsibility is not about blame, it's about power. It's about looking at every part of your life and saying, if I created this, I can recreate it. This truth can sting. It means no one is going to choose you louder than you choose yourself. But it also means you don't have to wait for anyone to change your story. You already hold the pen. The shift begins with ownership, and it deepens with action. When you stop asking, why won't they give me more, and start asking, where can I give myself what I've been missing, you become unstoppable. Sacred insight. Waiting is a form of resistance. Creation begins when you take responsibility not for how life has happened, but for what happens next. The responsibility practice. Identify one area of your life where you're waiting for validation, change, rescue. Write down the sentence you've been living. I'm stuck because Tika. Now rewrite it. I'm creating change by Armune. Take one action today that affirms your authorship. Book the meeting. Speak the truth. Apply anyway. No one is coming to save your life because you were never broken. You were just waiting to remember you're the one who was meant to build it. Every action you take begins in the quiet theater of identity. Before you make a choice, before you speak a word, before you even think a thought, you're already being someone. And that being determines everything that follows. Who you're being is the silent signal that precedes behavior. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are when you do it. The deeper truth is this: behavior is always downstream of identity. In 1931, a man named Vernon Field was known for his endless self-improvement efforts. He read every book, tried every system, took every course, but nothing stuck. He would rise, then fall back into old patterns. One day, after yet another failed routine, he sat in his small New York apartment and asked aloud, "Why can't I stay consistent?" And a quiet thought answered back, "Because you're still being the version of you who doesn't believe you're capable." That moment changed everything. Vernon stopped trying to act like a disciplined person and started identifying as one. He asked himself each morning, if I truly believed I was this, how would I move? His choices changed, but more importantly, his energy changed. He wasn't pushing anymore, he was aligning. You see, most people try to change their lives from the outside in. They try to modify behavior while holding on to the same self-concept. But unless the identity shifts, the changes won't last. You can force yourself to act wealthy, loved, or disciplined, but if you still see yourself as broke, unwanted, or unreliable, your subconscious will pull you back into congruence. Reality always mirrors who you're being. That's why true change doesn't start with goals. It starts with embodiment. Choose who you are, the rest will follow, and the beauty of this truth is its simplicity. You don't have to fight yourself. You don't have to use willpower to override the old. You just have to shift the root identity and let the new behaviors grow from that fertile ground. Sacred insight. You don't have to fix your actions. You only need to update the identity they're flowing from. Everything else adjusts itself to match. The identity embodiment practice. Think of a result you want. More peace, more influence, more creativity. Now ask, who is the version of me that lives this already? What do they believe about themselves? What do they no longer question? Step into that version before you take action. Let every choice emerge from that identity. Repeat this daily until it becomes who you are, not who you're trying to be. Behavior will follow like a shadow, and life will rise to meet the person you've become. You are not moving through time, you are moving through timelines. At every moment, countless versions of you exist, each walking a different path, each living a different reality, each waiting for your attention. The life you want isn't far away. It's already real, vibrating on a frequency just outside your current perspective. You don't need to wait for it. You need to tune to it. You need to become a technician of time. In 1946, an electrician named Claude Mercer stumbled on this truth by accident. He was known for his precision, able to repair faulty wiring others couldn't touch. One day, after reading a passage about parallel worlds in a science magazine, he had a strange thought. If I can trace a current and redirect it, can I do the same with my life? He decided to test it. For 30 days, he imagined himself already successful, not hoping, not visualizing, but living from it. He ate differently. He walked differently. He made decisions as if his success was already behind him. By the end of those 30 days, he had landed a contract he'd previously believed impossible. He wasn't surprised. I simply stepped onto a new line, he said, like flipping a switch. You see, every time you make a choice, you reinforce a timeline. When you complain, you signal the timeline where life disappoints. When you act with confidence, you signal the one where you're already succeeding. These aren't metaphors, they are energetic alignments. Time is not linear, it's layered, and you are the one who chooses which version becomes your experience. Most people live on default, looping through the same timeline day after day, replaying old fears and habits. But the moment you act from a new version of self, the moment you truly decide to move differently, speak differently, show up differently, you access a new stream, and life rushes in to support the version of reality you finally tuned into. Sacred insight. You are not stuck in a single storyline. You are selecting timelines with every thought, every belief, every moment of embodiment. The timeline switch practice. Identify one area of your life you want to upgrade. Ask, what timeline am I currently reinforcing? Now close your eyes and tune into the version of you who has already stepped into the desired outcome. What are they doing today? How do they feel when they wake up? How do they walk into rooms? Live as that version for the next 24 hours. Every time you hesitate or default, say, wrong timeline, and correct your frequency. The more often you choose the new stream, the more it becomes your dominant reality. You're not predicting the future, you're selecting it. You are not your thoughts. You are the space they pass through. Most people live as if the mind is the master, an endless stream of noise, judgments, worries, and plans. But behind the noise is a deeper field, a silence, a stillness. That stillness is not emptiness. It is the birthplace of all creation. When you access the mind beyond thought, you step into your true creative power. In 1933, a journalist named Helen Sycamore suffered from severe writer's block. No matter how hard she tried, the words wouldn't come. She paced, she pressured, she pushed. One afternoon, in frustration, she walked into a small cathedral and sat in silence. She closed her eyes and let the world fall away. Minutes passed, then something unexpected. Words like warm wind began arriving, not forced, not constructed, but flowing. She rushed to her notebook. The article she wrote that day won her the opportunity of a lifetime. Later she would say, I didn't write it. I received it from a quieter place than I'd ever visited before. That quieter place is always available. But it requires you to stop grabbing, reaching, and thinking your way to control. You don't need more thought. You need more space between them. The most powerful insights arrive when the mind is still. The most accurate decisions come when the noise subsides. Manifestation becomes clearest not in the hustle of trying, but in the presence of being. That's why so many breakthroughs happen in the shower, in dreams, or during a walk. You're not thinking harder, you're finally listening. You see, the conscious mind is a tool, a helpful one, but it's not your source of wisdom, it's your filter. The real power is beneath it. Call it the quantum field, your higher self, or the deep subconscious. Whatever name you choose, it speaks clearest in stillness. Most people fear silence because they confuse it with nothingness. But the truth is, silence is the access point. It's the channel through which the answers come. It's not passive, it's participatory. It listens, it opens, it allows. And in that allowing, you shift from mental strain to energetic alignment. Sacred insight. Stillness is not absence, it is access. When you quiet the surface, the deeper current reveals the way forward. The stillness practice. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. No music, no guidance, just you and breath. Every time a thought rises, don't follow, observe. Let it pass like a cloud. Feel into the space behind the thought. Ask nothing. Expect nothing. Simply listen. Then move into your next task without rushing. You'll notice clarity has returned, not because you figured something out, but because you stopped blocking what was always available. Creation doesn't come from effort, it comes from presence. There is an unconscious belief buried deep in many of us that says, if it's not hard, it's not valuable. We've been taught to glorify the grind, to romanticize the hustle, to believe that struggle equals worth. But what if the opposite is true? What if ease is not laziness but alignment? What if the most powerful realities come not from pushing, but from flowing? To let it be easy is not to abandon excellence. It's to release unnecessary friction. And when you do, life begins to reveal how much it wants to work with you, not against you. In 1942, a baker named Miriam Yates ran a small shop in Boston. She woke at 3 a.m. each day, kneading dough with aching wrists, convinced her exhaustion meant she was doing something important. One winter, after an injury forced her to rest, she reluctantly hired help. For the first time, she delegated. She slowed down. She spent time creating new recipes instead of just surviving the schedule. And something miraculous happened. Her business grew, orders doubled, her body healed. She was working less and earning more. I was addicted to hard, she later wrote, but easy was what changed everything. You see, flow is not the absence of effort. It's effort moving through the path of least resistance. It's when your energy, intention, and action align so naturally that it feels like you're being carried, not dragged. When you're in flow, tasks that used to drain you become enjoyable. Time expands. Opportunities arrive without struggle. You make better decisions because your nervous system is calm, not clenched. You are no less committed, just more cooperative with the rhythm of life. Most people confuse effort with meaning, but meaning doesn't live in exhaustion. It lives in alignment. It lives in that sweet space where skill meets surrender. Letting it be easy doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right thing at the right time in the right energy. Sacred insight. Life is not asking you to suffer your way to success. It's asking you to find the current and let it carry you. The ease practice. Choose one task you've been overcomplicating. Ask, what would this look like if it were easy? What's the simple next step? Let go of the idea that struggle is a requirement. Breathe, flow, let grace in, let rhythm return. You don't have to prove your value by how hard you work. Your presence is proof enough. Let it be easy, and watch how quickly life responds. You've been taught that results take time, that the universe is slow, that manifestation requires long-term commitment before you ever see evidence. But in truth, the field responds instantly, not always in form, but always in energy. Every thought sends a signal, every feeling broadcasts a frequency, and the field receives it immediately. That means your reality doesn't lag, it listens. In 1947, a retired soldier named James Rowe began gardening as a way to heal from trauma. One spring morning, after weeks of harsh weather, he planted a seed with a prayer: "Let this grow with peace." As he covered it with soil, something in him softened, his chest relaxed. That evening, a letter arrived from a brother he hadn't spoken to in years. It wasn't the seed that changed his life. It was the shift in energy. The return was instant, not in blooms, but in resonance. You see, we look for evidence in outcomes, but the first evidence is always in feedback. You smile, someone smiles back. You drop into gratitude, and time slows. You release a worry, and an idea arises. The field is responding, not tomorrow, but now. And when you understand this, you stop waiting. You stop testing the universe like a vending machine. You start embodying your truth in the moment, knowing that the return is already echoing. This is why alignment is so powerful, because the moment you tune to abundance, the field offers the next clue. The moment you commit to clarity, the fog begins to lift. You don't have to wait weeks or months. The shift begins inside, and the signal ripples instantly into the fabric of life. Most people miss this because they look for proof in form, but form is slower than frequency. First comes the feeling, then comes the mirror. Sacred insight. You're not waiting for life to respond. It already has. The moment your energy shifts, reality begins rearranging, even if your eyes can't see it yet. The instant feedback practice. The next time you shift into a positive state, gratitude, confidence, peace, pause and look around. Listen. Notice how the air feels, how your body responds, how people treat you. Practice trusting the energetic feedback. Life is already adjusting to your signal. You're not creating for later, you're creating now. The field doesn't delay. It delivers the moment you do. At every moment you stand at a crossroad. Every thought, every emotion, every action is a fork in the path. This is not metaphor, it is quantum truth. Life is not a single road winding into the future. It is a field of infinite possibilities, each one accessible through the power of decision. Decision is destiny. It is not the outcome of fate. It is the tool by which you select your next timeline. In 1930, a machinist named Everett Cole worked in a steel factory outside Detroit. Every evening he came home to his one-bedroom flat, ate the same meal, and stared at a wall where he once hung sketches of machines he dreamed of inventing. One night, in the silence, he whispered, "What would change if I just decided to live like I mattered?" The next morning he didn't quit his job. He didn't move cities. He simply chose differently. He dressed with care. He introduced himself as an inventor. He began building again on weekends. 3 years later, one of his patents revolutionized his industry. But the true shift happened the moment he decided. You see, most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they refuse to decide. They float in indecision, afraid of the consequences, unaware that not choosing is still a choice, one that keeps them looped in old realities. Every decision is a declaration to the field. It says, "This is who I am now." And when it's made with clarity, emotion, and conviction, life must respond. You don't have to know every step. You only need to choose the direction. Decisions collapse timelines. They take you from one reality to another without force. But the longer you hesitate, the more reality reflects your hesitation. Momentum dies in maybe. And decision doesn't mean perfection. It means energy in motion. Even a misstep made in commitment will teach you more than 1,000 days spent standing still. Sacred insight. Decision is not just about action. It is energetic alignment. When you decide, the universe reorganizes around that frequency. The destiny shift practice. Think of something you've been wavering on. Write down both the truth you know and the fear you feel. Now close your eyes and ask, which version of me is ready to choose? Let them answer. Make the decision. Speak it aloud. Let it land in your body. Then move as if your choice has already created results. Because it has. You're not waiting on destiny. You're shaping it. Every moment you decide, a new path begins to form beneath your feet. What you focus on becomes real, not just mentally, but vibrationally, physically, energetically. Your focus is not a passive lens. It is a tool, a wand. Wherever you place it, energy gathers, events unfold, circumstances shift. Focus is how you shape experience. And most people waste it on what they don't want. In 1948, a school teacher named Doris Lee began every day by listing her worries in her journal. Bills, illness, unspoken resentment. She believed she was being practical, until one day her niece asked, "Why do you water the weed every morning?" The question stunned her. She'd never thought of her thoughts as seeds. That week, she began writing different lists. What she appreciated, what felt good, what she wanted to see more of. It felt awkward at first, but within a month, her life changed. Her health improved. Her relationship softened. She had redirected her wand, and the spell changed. You see, the mind will follow wherever focus leads. If you point it toward fear, it gathers evidence. If you point it toward potential, it gathers power. You are never neutral. You are always directing reality through the gaze you hold. And the field does not delay. It mirrors your focus in real time. You complain, and the world gives you more to complain about. You celebrate, and it brings more to celebrate. Not because it's fair or unfair, but because it's precise. Focus doesn't mean denial. It means intention. It means asking, what do I want this moment to create? And then choosing to place your awareness there like a painter choosing a brushstroke. Sacred insight. You don't need to control everything. You only need to focus deliberately. The rest unfolds in response. The focus ritual. Pick one area of your life that feels scattered. For the next 7 days, devote 5 minutes daily to focusing only on what's working in that area. Speak it, write it, celebrate it. When problems arise, acknowledge them, but don't dwell. Return your focus to the solution, the vision, the next aligned step. This is not denial. It's design. You're not ignoring reality. You're choosing which reality to energize. There is a secret doorway in the human mind, one that bypasses doubt, overcomes delay, and collapses time. It's called assumption. Not wishful thinking, not forced belief, but the deep, steady knowing that what you desire is already yours. Assumption isn't fantasy, it's selection. It is the effortless art of receiving by deciding that the thing you want has already been chosen for you and living from that truth. In 1931, a post office clerk named Mary Cotter kept a quiet dream in her apron pocket. She wanted to run her own flower shop. Each night she arranged imaginary bouquets on her kitchen table, as if preparing for customers, but she never said a word to anyone. Until one spring morning she changed one thing, her internal dialogue. "I am the owner of a thriving floral shop," she began telling herself. Not someday, but now. She started to walk with that truth. She purchased business cards before she had a building. She practiced her smile for clients she hadn't yet met. Within 6 weeks, her landlord offered her the lease to a vacant corner store. A retired florist donated shelving. The business bloomed because she did. She didn't force anything. She simply assumed her role in the script, and the world caught up. You see, assumption works because the subconscious does not know the difference between imagined reality and lived reality. It simply accepts what is repeated with emotional intensity and consistency. When you assume something is true, without resistance, without negotiation, it begins rearranging everything to prove itself right. But most people assume the worst. They assume delays. rejection, lack. And the field reflects that assumption with absolute precision. The universe doesn't favor hope. It follows the dominant frequency of your belief. Assume you are loved, and your energy shifts. Assume you are supported, and your posture changes. Assume you are successful, and your presence sharpens. And from that new vibration, you receive, not through striving, but through alignment. Sacred insight, what you assume becomes your anchor. Life moves to meet the certainty you embody, not the words you speak. The assumption practice. Choose one reality you want to live. Write the sentence, I now assume I am God. Fill it with your desired identity, abundant, healthy, magnetic, safe. Say it aloud. Sit with it until the sentence begins to feel like memory instead of hope. Throughout your day, return to this assumption. Make decisions from it. Let it speak through your tone, your walk, your choices. The more you live it, the more it hardens into fact. You're not pretending, you're pre-living. And what you assume consistently, you will always receive. Control is a gripping energy. It tightens the body, narrows the mind, and signals to the universe, I don't trust this. But the moment you let go, not in surrender to defeat, but in surrender to flow, everything begins to move. This is the paradox of creation. The tighter you hold on, the slower things come. But when you release your grip, when you soften your need for outcome, reality begins to breathe again. When you let go, it flows. In 1940, a man named Elijah Brooks was desperate to sell his small batch of hand-carved furniture. He traveled town to town, knocking on doors, trying to persuade shopkeepers. Every time they refused, he grew more panicked. One afternoon, worn and frustrated, he sat down beside a river and said aloud, I'm done chasing. He watched the water for hours. Something inside him loosened. He remembered why he carved in the first place, not for sales, but for love. He returned home, built one final piece without urgency, and placed it in his front yard. A passing architect stopped, asked to buy it, and commissioned 10 more. The flood came not when Elijah forced, but when he flowed. You see, detachment isn't giving up. It's energetic spaciousness. It says, I trust the timing, I trust the unfolding, I trust myself. It opens the door for grace. It lets the universe breathe room into your intentions. Most people confuse detachment with disinterest, but detachment is deep trust. It's knowing your power so fully that you no longer micromanage the outcome. You become magnetic not because you chase, but because you glow from within. And when you let go of how and when, the how and when show up faster, because your energy is no longer blocking the path. Sacred insight. Detachment is not distance. It is faith in motion. When you release the need to force, life flows toward you with ease. The let go ritual. Think of something you've been clenching, a goal, a relationship, a timeline. Close your eyes. Picture it in your hands. Now gently open your palms and say, I release control. I trust the process. Imagine the energy lifting off of you, flowing into the hands of the universe. For the next day, act from inspiration, not pressure. Take aligned action without attachment. Watch what begins to shift. What you let breathe expands, and what you let go flows in. There is a current beneath the noise, a flow beneath the plans. You feel it when time slows down for no reason, when you turn left instead of right and avoid an accident, when a name floats into your mind and that person calls hours later. This is intuition, not a superstition or a soft whisper of preference, but a deep, guiding current. It is the wisdom of your higher self reaching you without words. In 1943, a nurse named Clara Simons found herself torn between 2 job offers. One paid more, one felt right, though it made no logical sense. She chose the latter, and weeks later, the hospital became the center for a breakthrough research project. She not only grew her career, she met the man she would later marry. She would often say, I followed the pull, not the plan. You see, logic is linear. Intuition is multidimensional. It doesn't always explain itself. It doesn't yell. It nudges. It stirs. It speaks in sensations, in clarity that doesn't need evidence. When you follow it, you tap into a path that's already unfolding on your behalf. You walk through doors before you know they're there. But most people override this current. They silence it with reason, delay it with doubt, and in doing so, they miss the fastest route to where they were always meant to go. Intuition doesn't promise comfort, but it delivers truth, and truth will always guide you to alignment. Sacred insight. Intuition is your soul's navigation system. When you trust it, life moves faster, not because you rush, but because you flow. The current practice. Think back to a time you followed a hunch, and it led somewhere powerful. Let that memory affirm your inner compass. Now ask, what am I being nudged toward right now? What path feels alive, even if it doesn't make sense? Take one small action from that place. Write the message. Accept the invitation. Decline the thing that feels heavy. Let the current carry you. You don't need a map when your soul already knows the way. Surrender is often misunderstood. It's seen as weakness, as giving up, as letting go of power. But in truth, surrender is the most advanced form of power. It is conscious non-control. It is the strategy of those who understand that force builds walls, while presence opens doors. To surrender does not mean to sit passively. It means to release the illusion that you are the one who must orchestrate every piece of the puzzle. In 1941, a piano tuner named Elias Vaughan struggled to start his own business. He created flyers, knocked on doors, made phone calls. Nothing worked. One day he threw his plans in the fireplace, sat on his porch, and whispered, "I can't keep pushing like this." He stared at the sky in silence. A few minutes later, a neighbor from down the street stopped by and said, "My brother's looking for someone who can fix his piano. Do you know anyone?" That was the beginning. The work began to flow. Elias didn't stop showing up, but he stopped gripping the outcome, and that made all the difference. You see, strategy is not just what you do, it's how you be. And being in surrender is not absence, it's deep listening. It's releasing your mental timeline so a higher one can unfold. When you surrender, you don't give up responsibility. You expand it. You take responsibility for your energy, not the logistics. You hold your frequency steady and trust that life is moving things on your behalf. Not because you begged, but because you aligned. Most people cling to outcomes because they think control is protection. But real protection comes from trust, and real trust makes room for brilliance that your mind alone can't predict. Sacred insight. Surrender is not letting go of power, it's letting go of interference. When you release control, you make space for clarity. The surrender practice. Take something you've been trying to figure out. Sit with it. Breathe. Say, "I release the need to control this. I choose alignment instead." Then ask yourself, what's the next obvious step? Not the perfect step, the next one. Do that. Then let go again. Surrender isn't one moment. It's a rhythm. Learn to dance with it, and watch how life begins to meet you with answers you never had to chase. Most people are taught to chase their desires, to run after outcomes with precision and pressure. But what if your highest path doesn't need to be found? It needs to be felt. The truth is, you don't choose the outcome. The outcome chooses you. It chooses you when your frequency matches its reality. When who you are becomes so aligned with what you want, there's no gap left to close. In 1938, a woman named Evelyn Drake dreamed of singing at the Grand Palais in Paris. She had no connections, no money, and no reason to believe it would ever happen. But each morning she dressed as if she already had a contract. She practiced in her parlor as if a full audience sat before her. She felt herself there. Every note, every gesture, every breath came from a version of her that had already been chosen. She didn't chase the outcome. She became it. 2 years later, an American producer vacationing in her town passed by her open window and heard her voice. The rest was history. You see, outcomes are not arbitrary. They are magnetic. The more you align with the energy of your desired future, the more that future finds you. It doesn't need to be chased. It needs to be received. This is why it's not enough to want something. You must calibrate your inner world to it. You must feel the version of you who already lives that life. When you do, you stop asking if it's coming. You start preparing like it's already arrived. Most people ask, how do I make this happen? But the better question is, who must I become so this outcome naturally includes me? When you shift who you are, the outcome can't help but find you, not because you earned it, but because you matched it. Sacred insight. You don't catch the outcome. You become the version of you that it naturally returns to. The match practice. Think of a goal that feels slightly out of reach. Now ask, what version of me already has this? How do they think? What decisions do they make that I currently resist? Spend the next day making micro choices from that version, not to pretend, but to align. And when you feel yourself slipping back into disbelief, say aloud, I trust the outcome is already on its way to find me. Because it is, and it always has been. Desire is a doorway, but not a destination. When you ask for something, you're not always seeing the full picture. You're asking from the perspective of what you know, what you've seen, what you've learned to expect. But the universe doesn't speak in limitation. It speaks in potential. And often, what you receive is greater than what you originally imagined, if you leave room for it. The phrase, this or something greater, is not just a mantra. It is an opening, an energetic permission slip that says, I trust you to surprise me. In 1945, a sculptor named Leo Forrester spent 3 years crafting a piece he hoped would win the national exhibition. He submitted it with all his hopes attached. Days passed, then weeks. No response. Crushed, he nearly gave up. One afternoon, a child wandered into his studio and touched the corner of a rejected piece, one Leo had dismissed as unfinished. The child's mother turned out to be the director of a new gallery. That forgotten sculpture became the centerpiece of their opening. It launched Leo's career, not the one he prayed over, but the one he couldn't have imagined. You see, intention is powerful, but rigidity blocks miracles. When you demand only one outcome, you cut off the field's ability to deliver something better. And better doesn't always look like more. It often looks like alignment, expansion, timing, grace. This or something greater is not passive. It is active trust. It's stating your desire clearly and then stepping back with open palms, allowing the universe to fill them not just with what you wanted, but what was made for you. And the greater thing doesn't come when you expect it. It comes when you're ready to receive without gripping. When your desire is no longer a command, but a collaboration. Sacred insight, the greatest things in your life often begin where your plans end. Leave space for the unexpected to exceed you. The expansion practice. Think of a goal or vision you've been holding tightly. Say it aloud with clarity, then speak the words, this or something greater. Feel the release. Let go of the need to micromanage the how. Begin moving as if it's already unfolding, but with eyes open to surprises. Watch for what shows up uninvited but aligned. When you stop insisting, life starts succeeding. Manifestation isn't about thought, it's about frequency. And the fastest way to align with a frequency is through emotion. When you feel something as if it's already real, you call it into your field. The body doesn't know the difference between memory, imagination, or reality. It only knows vibration. That's why when you truly feel your vision, your world begins to shift in response. Feel it real, and it becomes real. In 1932, a man named Desmond Rudd had never traveled beyond his rural town but he dreamed of seeing the Eiffel Tower. Each night before sleep, he would close his eyes and imagine the train, the language, the cafe air. He would feel the iron beneath his fingers, the cool wind, the scent of espresso. He brought the vision so vividly into his body that it became more than fantasy. It became familiar. One summer, a distant cousin invited him to Europe. He stood beneath the tower with tears in his eyes, not from surprise, but from recognition. You see, when you can feel the outcome as real, you collapse the need to chase it. You embody it, and when your nervous system normalizes success, the external world begins to reflect that reality. It no longer feels far away, it feels familiar, and the body moves toward what it knows. Most people think about what they want, but they do not feel it. They create visions in their minds, but carry conflicting emotions in their hearts. That dissonance creates delay. But when you feel it real, deep in the body, layered with emotion and imagery, you broadcast a signal of completion, and reality responds. This is why athletes rehearse mentally, why actors feel the role before playing it, why those who rise fastest are those who already live the frequency of where they're going. Sacred insight: you don't attract what you think, you attract what you embody. And the easiest way to embody is to feel it first. The feeling practice. Choose one vision, close your eyes, see it vividly. Now go deeper. What does it smell like? What's the temperature? Who's there with you? What's the emotion? Let your body soften into the scene. Stay with it for 5 minutes. Then open your eyes and carry that emotional frequency with you. This is not a fantasy. It's energetic rehearsal. And what is rehearsed emotionally becomes real, physically. Feel it real, and the field will follow. You've been taught that everything takes time, that dreams unfold only when all the steps have been taken. But the truth is, time is elastic. The version of your life you're waiting for already exists on another frequency, and you can access it now. Not by rushing, but by living from the end. When you collapse the weight, you collapse the timeline. In 1944, a playwright named Cecily James was told she'd have to wait years before her work was ever produced. She ignored them. She rented a tiny hall, hung hand-painted curtains, and put on her play with neighbors and borrowed chairs. She lived as if it was already happening. A theater critic walking by on opening night wandered in. The review he wrote launched her career. She didn't wait, he wrote. She became. You see, most people extend time by standing outside their desires, rehearsing lack, preparing endlessly. But the moment you live inside your vision, when you think, speak, and act as if it's already unfolding, the weight disappears. You no longer vibrate as someone hoping. You vibrate as someone fulfilled. This changes your choices, your posture, your tone. The world feels it, and the feedback loop begins. You don't rush the outcome. You become the version of you that already has it, and that version lives differently. Sacred insight. Time isn't keeping you from your dream. Identity is. Collapse the weight by collapsing who you believe you need to become, and be them now. The end practice. Choose one area you've been waiting in. Ask, how would I act if this were already done? What would I stop doing? What would I start saying? Shift one piece of behavior today to match the end result. Walk into the room as if the dream has arrived. Sit with the posture of completion. The more you embody the end, the faster the field bends to your frequency. You're not chasing the future, you are it. Everything is vibration. And your life is a mirror, not of your desires, but of your dominant frequency. If you want something but your energy contradicts it, you won't experience it. This is why people struggle despite affirmations. The universe does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. To change what you attract, you must become the signal. In 1936, a violinist named Gregory Marsh practiced every day with discipline and devotion. He auditioned often, but no orchestra chose him. "What am I doing wrong?" he asked his mentor. The answer surprised him. "You still play like someone trying to be accepted. Play like someone already chosen." That night, Gregory stood alone in his parlor and played as if the world were already listening. His posture changed, his energy shifted. Within a month, he received an invitation to audition for the city's most prestigious symphony, not because he worked harder, but because he finally became the match. Being the signal means living, breathing, and thinking from the reality you want, not toward it. It means embodying the result before it's visible, not as a trick, but as a truth. You see, the quantum field doesn't need convincing. It needs coherence. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions line up with your desire, the field has no choice but to reflect it. Not because it's rewarding you, but because you've tuned yourself to the broadcast. And the broadcast isn't just emotional, it's behavioral. It's in the way you answer the phone, how you enter a room, the decisions you make when no one is watching. If your dream version of self is confident, generous, joyful, then your current self must begin expressing that, not one day, but now. You don't wait for reality to validate your signal. You let your signal create your reality. Sacred insight. You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you become. When your frequency matches the outcome becomes inevitable. The signal embodiment practice. Choose one outcome you desire. Ask, what vibration does this live on? Identify the feeling, freedom, joy, certainty, then become the living transmission of that feeling. Walk with it. Speak from it. Make one small decision today from the frequency of the result already being real. When you hold the signal consistently, the world will respond in kind, not because you called for it, but because you are it. Most people believe that movement is what makes life happen, that doing is where power lives. But the deepest transformations occur in stillness. In the space between effort and control, something else awakens. Stillness is not the absence of action, it is the presence of power. It is the space where energy accelerates, not through motion, but through clarity. In 1941, a woman named Anna Weiss worked tirelessly to keep her late husband's bookstore afloat. Every day she rearranged shelves, updated signs, and ran promotions, but nothing shifted. One Sunday she closed the shop, sat on the floor, and did nothing. She didn't plan, she didn't fix, she just breathed. For the first time in years, her mind went quiet. In that silence, a vision came, a literary tea room. Books, yes, but also experience. She had never considered it before. That single moment of stillness birthed an idea that changed everything. Within a year, her store was the most popular gathering spot in her district. You see, clarity doesn't come from more thinking. Acceleration doesn't come from more doing. It comes from the emptiness between thoughts, the space where guidance slips in. Most people drown their insight with noise. But silence is the language of the soul. Stillness is where the quantum field becomes accessible. It's where answers already exist. When you get quiet, you stop creating from habit and start creating from presence. You align with the highest timeline, not through force, but through awareness. You don't need to pause forever, just long enough to listen, to hear what wants to emerge. Because the moment you stop filling the space, the truth begins to speak. Sacred insight. Stillness doesn't slow your progress, it speeds it. It clears the static and tunes you to the next clear signal. The stillness activation. Find a moment today to sit in pure silence. No music, no input, no distractions. Close your eyes. Breathe. Ask nothing. Expect nothing. Allow the quiet to stretch. Then notice what rises, not just in thought, but in feeling. Carry that space into your next action. Let your stillness guide your steps. And remember, sometimes the most aligned move is not to move until you're moved from within. There's a moment when everything begins to shift, and it's not when you visualize harder or hope louder. It's when you begin to move like it's already done, When you act not as the version of you who wants the thing, but as the one who has it. This is where energy meets matter. This is where timelines collapse. Action, when taken from certainty, sends a signal too strong to be ignored. In 1933, a man named Franklin Day dreamed of owning a jazz club. For years, he spoke of it as a someday goal. Then one morning, he woke up and dressed in his best suit. He went downtown and toured 3 vacant properties. He had no investors, no business plan, just one thing, a decision. When asked what he was doing, he said, "I'm preparing to open my club." He ordered monogrammed napkins. He created the menu. 2 weeks later, an old friend reached out, unaware of his plans, and offered to back a local business idea. Franklin moved like it was done. And so it was. You see, the universe doesn't wait to respond until the contract is signed or the bank confirms your funds. It responds the moment you do. When you walk as if, speak as if, and live as if, reality molds around the clarity of your conviction. Action rooted in belief is louder than 10,000 thoughts. It demonstrates embodiment. It declares to the field, "This is who I am now," and the field adjusts accordingly. But most people hesitate. They wait for proof before they commit. They ask for signs before they prepare. But your life won't change from the outside in. It will change. It will change the moment you walk through the world as if it already has. Sacred insight. Reality doesn't follow thought. It follows embodied energy. Move like it's done and the world will catch up. The as-if practice. Choose one desire you've been waiting on. Ask, what would I do today if this were already real? Then do that. It can be small. Wear the outfit. Make the list. Organize the space. Speak from completion. Take one bold step in the direction of certainty. Every time you act from the energy of done, you pull the future into the present, and the bridge between hoping and having disappears. You've been told to attract, to manifest, to pull things toward you with vision boards and willpower. But the truth is, what you want is already trying to reach you. You don't need to attract it. You need to stop resisting it. Creation isn't about pulling reality in. It's about allowing it through. Allowing isn't passive. It's energetic permission. When you align, soften, and open, what you've been chasing starts arriving without a chase. In 1942, a young artist named Beatrice Hall spent years submitting her paintings to galleries, each rejection more painful than the last. One evening she stared at her latest piece and sighed, "What else do I have to do?" Her mentor simply replied, "Nothing, just stop pushing." Beatrice didn't understand, but she tried something new. Instead of submitting, she displayed her work in a small cafe. She stopped striving. She started painting for joy again. One morning, a traveler passing through bought every piece on the wall. He was a gallery curator. The opening that followed launched her career. Her success didn't come from attracting, it came from allowing. You see, everything you want exists now, not in the future, but in the field. It's not waiting to be earned, it's waiting to be received. When you drop the resistance, when you stop doubting, clenching, over-efforting, you let it in. Allowing happens when you believe you are worthy, when you trust timing, when you stop telling yourself that it has to be hard, when you stop demanding proof and start living from peace. Most people block their manifestations not through lack of effort, but through the tension of trying too hard. They pray and then worry. They visualize and then panic. This mixed signal says to the field, "I want it, but I don't trust I can have it." Allowance is coherence. It's inner harmony. It's the gentle exhale that says, "I don't need to grip this to receive it." Sacred insight. Your desires don't need to be attracted. They need to be received. What you stop resisting begins to flow, the allowance practice. Think of something you've been striving for. Ask, where am I tightening around this? Where am I blocking with doubt or effort? Breathe into that space. Speak aloud, I allow this into my life now. Then soften. Don't do more. Be more open. Move from grounded certainty. Take inspired action without forcing. You'll feel the difference. Allowing isn't giving up. It's letting in. And what you permit with peace will arrive with grace. Every moment you are broadcasting, not just through words or actions, but through presence, through frequency, through being. And everything, every person, event, delay, surprise, is responding to that signal. The universe doesn't wait for your affirmation. It responds to your default, your silence, your sigh, your subconscious narrative. Even what you don't say is a message. Everything is always responding. In 1939, a telegraph operator named Rowland Wells had a reputation for getting messages through with impossible speed. One night, a colleague asked him how. Rowland said, "I don't just send the message. I listen to the silence between clicks." He believed the space between signals carried just as much meaning. He became so attuned to it that he could feel when something was about to arrive before it did. One evening, while tuning the machine, he paused and whispered, "It's already here." A message arrived 2 seconds later. You see, the world works the same way. The silence between your words speaks volumes. The moment before the decision is already shaping the outcome. Even your stillness, your mood, your breath sends instructions into the field. This is why you don't have to constantly affirm or repeat to make things happen. What matters is who you are being when you're doing nothing, because even that is a signal. Most people believe life is only listening when they're speaking clearly, but the truth is life is always responding to your vibration, not your vocabulary. You can say, "I'm ready" all day long, but if your frequency says, "I'm scared," the field responds to the fear. You can sit in silence and still summon a miracle if your energy says, "I trust." Every emotion, every assumption, every moment of awareness sends out a ripple, and that ripple calls back its match. Sacred insight. The universe responds to energy, not performance. It hears your silence, it feels your baseline, it reflects your being. The response practice. Throughout your day, notice how the world interacts with you when you're not trying. In moments of pause, ask, "What am I emitting right now?" Tune in. If it feels tight, soften. If it feels scattered, center. Know that even in stillness you are creating. The more you align with presence, the more your world reflects peace. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to be visible. You simply have to be resonant. Because life is always responding to even the quietest signal. There is no line between you and your reality. No space between cause and effect. What you see around you is not something separate, external, or distant. It is you, extended. You are not standing in the current of life. You are the current. The moment you grasp this, you stop trying to manipulate your world from the outside. You start shaping it from within. In 1944, a radio engineer named Milton Pace worked on antenna frequencies for the military. One day, while testing a transmission device, he realized the signal wasn't coming from the hardware, but from the loop between sender and receiver. The machine isn't producing the signal, he noted in his journal. It is the signal. That sentence would repeat in his mind for weeks. He began to look at his own life with the same lens. What if his reality wasn't something separate? What if he wasn't living in a world, but projecting one? Everything changed. His business improved not because he worked harder, but because he started treating his thoughts like blueprints. His relationship softened because he stopped blaming and started aligning. He no longer fought the current. He became it. You see, you are not a being inside the universe. You are the universe, aware of itself in a specific form. You're not sending out ripples from a shoreline. You are the ocean. When you understand this, you stop begging for waves. You start shifting the tide. This is not ego. This is essence. You don't control everything, but you do inform everything. Creation doesn't respond to your demands. It echoes your essence. When you try to change reality from a place of separation, You feel exhausted. You chase, plead, fix. But when you recognize that every outcome is an extension of your inner world, power returns. You move from creator, not from controller. Sacred insight. You are not influencing the current. You are the current, and the world bends around your frequency in real time. The current practice. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Breathe into your body. Repeat gently, I am not outside creation. I am the current of it. Feel the truth of those words settle into your being. Then, as you move through your day, treat every interaction as part of you, because it is. Watch how reality becomes more responsive, more fluid, more alive. You are not behind the scenes. You are the scene itself, the signal and the receiver, the dream and the dreamer. You are not here to survive. You are not here to chase. You are not even here to fix what's broken. You are here to create. Creation is not something you learn. It is what you are. Just as the sun shines, just as rivers flow, you express. This is your essence. And when you remember that, life no longer feels like effort. It becomes an extension of your being. In 1937, a man named Wesley Dow worked as a draftsman in a factory. His life was efficient, structured, and uninspired. One weekend during a rainstorm, he picked up a lump of clay just to pass time. Hours passed. The sculpture he shaped was nothing spectacular, but something in him awakened. He felt clear, alive, reconnected. From that day, he began sculpting every Sunday. His energy changed. He laughed more, solved problems faster. His co-workers noticed. His family softened around him. He wasn't escaping into art. He was returning to essence. You see, creation isn't always about art. It's about flow, expansion, contribution. When you create, whether a painting, a business, a meal, a smile, you remember your true nature. You feel less separate, less tight. You return to your original frequency, source expressing itself through form. Most people live in effort. They've been taught that only work has value, but work without creation drains the soul, and creativity without pressure restores it. You don't have to monetize your gifts. You just have to express them. And the irony, the more you live from creation, the more you receive. Flow brings abundance. Expression opens channels. When you create from essence, life supports you without you needing to prove yourself. Sacred insight. You are not a problem to solve. You are a creator learning to remember that expression is who you are, not what you do. The return to creation practice. Ask yourself, when do I feel most like myself? What activity brings me into flow, even if it's simple? Make space for it this week, not as a task, as a homecoming. Let it be free of outcome. Let it be pure. You'll notice something strange and beautiful. As you create, solutions find you. The answers you chased appear in your quiet joy. You're not forcing reality, you're rejoining it. You've been taught to wait, to earn, to suffer before receiving. You've been told that time is the barrier between you and your dream, but time is not the gatekeeper. Time is a mirror. It stretches or collapses based on your vibration. When your energy aligns with your desire, things move fast. Not because time speeds up, but because it stops standing in your way. There is no delay. There is only alignment or misalignment. In 1943, a seamstress named Dorothy Bloom dreamed of publishing a book of poetry, but she believed it would take years, connections, rejections, a long climb. One evening she wrote a few stanzas and left them on a cafe table. A stranger found the paper, tracked her down, and asked to publish her work. It happened in 1 week, not because she forced it, but because she had a moment of pure resonance. The writing wasn't an act of effort, it was an act of alignment. She touched the timeline where her success already existed. You see, when you are fully aligned, when your thoughts, emotions, and embodiment match the frequency of your desire, time collapses. The field rearranges. The delay disappears. It's not a reward for waiting. It's a result of coherence. But when you believe in delay, you create it. You push things further away with thoughts like, "It's not time yet," or "I still have to prepare." These are not facts. They are permissions you grant to time to stay in charge. Time bends around belief. When you believe it takes long, it does. When you live from the end, it shortens. This is why some things take years and others days. The difference isn't the universe, it's your signal. And when you let go of needing time to validate you, you become timeless. You stop aging dreams with worry. You stop dragging them behind dates and calendars. You live now, and now is the only time manifestation can occur. Sacred insight: delay is not a condition of reality. It is a condition of frequency. What you match, you receive, no matter how fast or slow you think life moves. The time collapse practice. Choose something you've labeled as someday. Bring it into your body. Ask, what if this were already happening? How would I think? What would I stop postponing? Take one action today from the energy of now, not next year, not after the promotion, not after you feel ready. The moment you stop waiting, time stops resisting. Your future is not far away. It's waiting for permission to enter. Reality speaks in echoes, not in words, but in reflection. What you see around you, your relationships, your finances, your health, is not the world acting on you. It is the world reflecting you. The people you attract, the delays you face, the opportunities you notice. All of it is the echo of who you are being. You want to know who you are beneath your words? Look at what repeats. Look at what surrounds. Reality reveals the truth you're ready to own. In 1939, a school principal named Joseph Langston noticed a pattern. Each year, a new teacher would arrive with promise and potential, and within months, they'd resign. He blamed poor funding, the children's restlessness, the city's instability, until one day a colleague told him, "You speak like someone who expects people to leave." That night, Joseph walked home with a sinking realization. He had been abandoned early in life, and that fear had never left. He expected loss, and life faithfully mirrored that expectation. From that day, he changed the way he greeted staff. He told them, "You belong here." The pattern ended. You see, reality is a mirror, not of your hope, but of your vibration. It shows you not what you say you want, but what you actually believe, what you assume, what you carry in your emotional signature. It reveals the version of you currently in the lead. But this is not judgment. This is a gift, because when you see the pattern, you can shift the source. The world doesn't echo back your worth. It echoes back your identity, and identity can be rewritten. The moment you shift the internal story, the reflection must change. Not eventually, immediately, sometimes subtly at first, but always, completely. Sacred insight. Reality is not against you. It is answering you. If you don't like what's being said, change the voice it's echoing. The mirror practice. Look at one area of your life that feels misaligned. Ask, what is this revealing about who I've been being? Then write a new identity, the version of you who no longer creates this echo. Embody that version today. Watch how the world shifts in small, perfect ways. Because when you change your tone, the echo must respond. You've been told to grow, improve, evolve, to become something better. But the deepest truth is this: you have nothing to become, only something to remember. You are already whole, already powerful, already aligned with all that you seek. The work is not in becoming, it is in being. It is in shedding the layers of programming, expectation, and fear that told you otherwise. Your highest self is not a goal, it is your original nature. In 1930, a philosopher named Eleanor Quinn lived in the French countryside, surrounded by books, solitude, and a garden she tended with devotion. When asked what her life's work was, she responded, "To become quiet enough to hear who I've always been." She didn't chase enlightenment. She lived from it. She laughed easily, walked slowly, not because she didn't care, but because she finally did. She once wrote, "Peace is not something I found. It's something I stopped rejecting." You see, the world will always give you things to chase. Titles, milestones, affirmations. And there's nothing wrong with desire. But when desire becomes identity, you lose yourself in the process of trying to become something you're not. Being is the return. It's the breath behind the doing. It's the awareness behind the thought. It's the infinite self beneath the roles you play. When you remember that, life becomes lighter. You're no longer here to earn your worth. You're here to express it. There is no final version of you. There is only deeper embodiment, more truth, more presence, and the peace that comes from knowing there's nothing to fix, only something to live. Sacred insight, your highest self, is not something you reach. It is who you already are when you stop trying to be anything else. The return practice. Sit in silence. Ask yourself, who am I when I stop trying to become? Feel into that space. It will not speak loudly, but it will feel like home. As you move through your day, release the performance. Speak truthfully. Choose peace over proving. Let your beingness lead. The world won't resist you. It will finally recognize you because you didn't come here to become. You came here to be.